It's hard to contain your excitement when you get something you've really wanted. Like the gold standard in automotive protection, WeatherTech floor liners. With deep sculpted channels and laser measured for total protection in the front, back, and even up the sides.
Dad, you're going viral.
What? WeatherTech me.
So don't be shy, enjoy. Order your premium American-made products at WeatherTech.com.
Yesterday, but the drama definitely boiled over in a few cases. There's one last chance to settle the score, so get ready for the season finale of the Porsche Sprint Challenge North America GT3 Cup. I'm Joe Peak here with Ryan Marine, and we're finally getting a little bit of sun out here at Sonoma, Ryan.
It's taken a little while today. That marine layer was in evidence in the build-up to today's race, but it's mostly burned off. The sun's trying to peek through, and it leaves us with a wonderful day to go racing for the final time in 2024. Amazing that we're already at the season finale.
Absolutely. And let's take a look at this track and some of the details that we've got involved in it. It's certainly a classic in American road racing.
No doubt about it. Opened in 1968. This hairpin corner, certainly one of the features of the track that everyone talks about. Turn 11 leads onto the front straightaway here. Not much straight about the straightaway, and that's really true of this entire track. It's twisty. It has tons of elevation change, nearly 15 stories in all, from the highest point at turn 3-8 to the lowest point in turn number 10. This is a real challenge of a racetrack for the teams and drivers, especially after the repave that took place over the winter. We're looking at a 12-turn course at just over 2.5 miles. You see some of the big passing opportunities there highlighted. There are not many of them. I mean, we've highlighted 4, but drivers will say it takes perfect execution and maybe a little bit of a mistake from the car in front to try and make those passes. But nevertheless, drivers love the challenge of this place, especially post-repave, because there's just grip for days around this racetrack now, and it's a real thrill to drive.
So as the cars are lined up, just a real quick update on the championship situation. Jared Thomas, unofficially your champion in the Pro-Am, so nothing to fight for in the top spot there. And Niels Meissner, once he starts this race and takes the green flag, he'll be our champion in the 991s. As for the 992 Masters, that is the only one up for grabs. Now, the simple way to think of it is that Scott Blend needs to finish 7th or better. He'll clinch if that's the case. Bowden needs to finish 3rd or better to have a shot at the championship, no matter where Scott Blend finishes. But we'll try and track that as this goes on. And love to hear those engines rumbling as the pace car now takes off and leads them away for our pace lap. That gives us a chance to head through our starting grid for today. And it is Aaron Janson who is starting on the pole for this one, with Paul Bocuse, who started on the pole yesterday but couldn't bring it home. He'll start from P2, see if he can finally get that win. Ashley Freiberg will be 3rd alongside Jared Thomas, and those two had contact yesterday, so we'll see if they can settle their differences today. Caden Kelly will be P5 as Conrad Geis will start from the 6th position. Then you head down to row 4, and Scott Blend will be starting from 7th. Rob Walker will be in P8. You move behind them to row 5, and it'll be Mark Bowden trying to chase for that championship in 9th, and Joel Johnson, Ryan, will round out our top 10.
Local driver Therese Lalou will start in the 11th position next to Shane Leathers, who's moved over to the Fall Line team here this weekend. That is the 6th row of the grid. Row number 7, it's Mike Mim, and then one of the Masters class drivers, Jody Miller, set to line up in the 14th position. Starting 15th today will be John Gilliland, and in 16th, Nick Galante making his season debut this weekend for the MDK Motorsports team. He's deputizing for Mark Kwame. Frank Vitiello starts in 17th. Kyle Washington, a Californian, will start in the 18th position. Niels Meissner has the pole in the 991 class, and when the green flag comes out, he will be the champion-elect in that class next to Tony Melito, who's doing his best to stay alive in the championship. He brought it to the final race of the season, but he's going to need some misfortune in about the next 30 seconds if he's going to have a shot at the title. John McInnes and Dan Ammon start in row number 11, and then we get to the 12th row where it's John Manship and Alessandro Chiocchetti set to line up in 23rd and 24th. Eric Lapp and Thomas Herb starting out back in row 13.
Already getting to the chicane. That's another spot where you could see passes today. Certainly saw a lot of action yesterday, and now they start to go double file. Pace car will peel off soon. Janson will try to back up his victory from yesterday and deny Paul Bocuse that first win of the season. He was so close as he led most of the race yesterday, but was passed very late in the race when traffic and a little bit of a mistake opened the door, and Aaron jumped through that immediately. Got to wonder about Ashley Freiberg versus Jared Thomas behind them. They have certainly had their fair share of clashes this season. Will they give us one last bit of fireworks, or will they be able to keep away from one another out there? Boy, they are nice and tightly packed coming up to the start-finish line. We wait for the call from the flag stand as they slowly approach through turn 12. They can see him now up ahead, and there it is. Green flag is out for our last race of the season. Immediately cutting across, Aaron Janson tries to deny Paul Bocuse a chance to try and sneak in front of him. It's that battle for third coming up side by side into turn 2. Can we make it through clean?
And with the drop of the green flag, congratulations, Niels Meissner, your 2024 991 class champion. But the battle still is for that second spot. It is a really good fight. Jared Thomas does come out on top, grabs that third spot away. Those two picking up right where they left off yesterday with that battle that ultimately saw Jared Thomas penalized post-race. So if you didn't see some of our later coverage in the day, we left you at the end of that race yesterday thinking Thomas was on the podium. He was assessed a penalty post-race, was pretty understanding of it, all things considered, when he talked to the stewards after the fact. But picking up with a strong start here, jumping up into third on the opening lap. And
Thomas was slotted back into 10th with that penalty in the end. Regardless, he still was able to unofficially clinch the championship points-wise with that finish. Very single file through much of the top of the field coming through the hairpin, so that's good to see the drivers getting underway and trying to get settled in. It's not the longest of races at 35 minutes plus one lap, but we want to see some good clean laps to start this one after we had drama on lap 1 coming into turn 4 last time.
Janson already building a gap. Yesterday he spent most of the race trying to plot a course past Paul Bocuse, and ultimately did so late in the going, but it did feel like he had a pace advantage if he could get to clean air. We're starting to see that at the start of race 2 of the weekend. Bocuse now has his mirrors full with the hard-charging Jared Thomas up one position here at the start. First lap in the books, and Aaron Janson leads the way up the hill.
For those that haven't been watching so far this season, Thomas has really been the one to beat for much of it and has taken most of the wins. So for him to be back in third is a bit of an interesting position, as yesterday was unable to really kind of get himself into the mix as much. Will he be able to kind of correct that and try and challenge to take back a victory to cap things off? He is definitely putting some pressure on Paul in that 271 car, at least in the first couple laps here.
You say most of the wins. I think that maybe does him a disservice. He's won all but 2 of the races coming into the weekend, now 3 after his penalty yesterday, and really never did lead that race. That was a race controlled by Bocuse and Janson. But here, Jared Thomas is looking like he wants to cap off this championship season with a win. Really aggressive on the braking. In fact, it looked like he might have been caught out a bit by when Paul went to the brakes himself and lost a bit of momentum. So Bocuse, for the moment, is out of peril, and now it's Ashley Freiberg starting to close in on Jared Thomas in the fight for third.
And that was another one that was reversed for that race for quite some time. Ashley held on to that third spot, and Jared was trying to get by. They came together through the S's that you saw them go through shortly before, and that's what wound up causing the penalty for Jared. It sent him down to 10th in the final order. They're also being chased by Conrad Geis, one of the few other drivers to have a win this season, and yesterday's winner, Caden Kelly, who's now leading the Masters category for the second race this weekend.
Yeah, Caden doing a great job here. His first starts of the season coming this weekend. It's a bright colored car, blue car primarily, in the middle of the shot here. Caden Kelly with Throttle Therapy Motorsports, being chased by Rob Walker, who was able to jump Scott Blend at the start and get up into that second spot. Blend doing what he needs to do. If he can run right where he is, top 3, top 5, in fact, would get the job done, he will clinch the championship. And at this stage, having taken the green flag, it would really take a miracle for Mark Bowden to steal the title away at this late stage in the season.
Yeah, it'll have to be something dramatic, but we've seen a lot of dramatic things happen this weekend. So I wouldn't put it past it, and as I always say, it's not over until that checkered flag falls. So hold on to your seats, because we've got 30 minutes plus a lap left to go in this race, and it is not decided yet for the 992 Masters. While Caden Kelly is looking ahead to Conrad Geiss and keeping tabs with him. Now, he doesn't have to pass him because there's no points difference with them being in different classes. However, it would put a buffer between himself and Walker. So we'll have to watch and see whether or not he feels he's got the pace to try and go by the 267.
Good day yesterday for Conrad Geiss. We mentioned his win earlier in the year at Watkins Glen, and he was kind of there to pick up the pieces when the cars in front of him all came together. But yesterday, he found himself on the podium for the second time this season. He benefited again from the contact between Freiberg and Thomas, and then the ultimate penalty from Jared Thomas as well. But a really strong result for Conrad, who's in his first season of racing at this level, doing a really nice job. Comes from a racing family. Both of his parents were racers as well, but he came to this relatively late in life. Certainly didn't get started in his youth, let's put it that way. Not an old man by any stretch of the imagination, but doing a really good job learning in a short amount of time. His improvement over the course of the season has been remarkable.
Indeed, yeah, he's been finishing higher and higher, and like you said, picking up the pieces has kind of been his MO late in the season. I'm sure there's still speed he wants to find, but he's definitely been fast enough that while drivers such as Bocuse, Thomas, Freiberg have been kind of running away at the front, he's absolutely there and ready should something happen to one of them to get those good results. Unfortunately, he didn't really get to physically stand on the podium since it was Thomas, but I'm sure he'll accept the trophy and the stat regardless. He's definitely getting a bit of pressure from Caden in these early laps, but Caden has not been close enough to attack, just making sure to keep him in view.
Well, Caden will know this track well. He's from Auburn, California, has done a lot of racing here on the West Coast, including a fourth-place finish in Porsche Sprint Challenge USA West 1 year ago with his Throttle Therapy Motorsports team, one of the smaller teams in the paddock. The setup is a bit more simple than some of the powerhouses like a JDX or a Wright Motorsports or TPC along down the line. But the beauty of this championship is the cars are equal, and a good driver with some good engineering can extract some pretty remarkable things out of these race cars. Caden's been displaying that all throughout the course of this weekend.
A little bit of a mistake from Paul coming over turn 2. He holds the inside into 3 to try and defend. Going to fight around the outside. It is Jared Thomas with an impressive move through 3 and 3A. That is almost never a place where cars pass.
No, that almost never works, but these two have a lot of respect for one another. They've raced each other close all season long, and they were able to make it work. That was bold, no doubt about it, from Jared Thomas. He's clearly undaunted by any of the outcomes from yesterday, but a tremendous move and moves him up to second. Now he's got to try and run down Aaron Johnson, who's about 3 seconds up the road, a driver that Jared knows really well because he employs him in MX5 Cup racing.
Yeah, if we have a highlight reel for the season, I definitely vote to put that one in there. I can't believe he made that work so smoothly as he did. Now, one thing I do wonder if it's affecting the choices of the drivers in this race. We mentioned it in the qualifying practice for the endurance challenge that happened earlier this morning. These cars, many of these cars, will have to race in the round 3 of the endurance challenge, which is later on today. So some of the drivers may be thinking about the equipment and saying, well, is this worth the risk for me to miss out on the important event we've got going on later this afternoon?
It's a valid question, especially with so many of the championships decided at this late stage of the season. They think about looking after the race car. Even if you're not running in the endurance race this afternoon, just load that car up, still looking pristine, nice and pretty. Don't have too much work to do in the off-season. I think that's a nice motivation there as well.
Yeah, might not want to give the team work to do in the off-season there to prepare it if you intend to come back for Sprint Challenge next time around. So that moves Thomas up into P2, and he's got about 4 seconds last time across the line to catch up to Janson, who was actually gapping Bocuse before that pass even happened. So some work to do as we watch on board with our champion-elect Niels Meissner in the 152. And it looks like he is leading that class currently, if I'm seeing this correctly. Yeah, Tony Melito separated by he and John McInnes currently in 19th and 21st overall.
Doing a great job as ever right now. Niels running behind Frank Vitiello. That's the red car you see out the windscreen. Different car, of course. This is the older generation 991.2 version of the Cup car. That brightly colored machine is the one we were on board with just a moment ago, and you can see this traffic that's starting to back up a bit behind Frank Vitiello. This will be difficult for Meissner. I'd say of all the tracks we go to, this one and Barber probably are where the older car that has less power is less or the least disadvantaged compared to the newer 992 car. But still, trying to make a pass on a car that has a bit more aero, has a bit more horsepower as well. It's a real challenge anywhere you go.
He's done pretty well with it all season long and has often been mixed up in these 992 machines. It's been kind of the story of his race as well as Tony's. As we can tell, Tony's been keeping him honest for much of the season, but at times it's just been far and away Niels Meissner absolutely dashing off into the distance. I'm sure he's going to enjoy today's event as they're in the thick of a train of these 992s here in the middle of the field. That's Vitiello, as you said, in front of him, McInnes between himself and Melito, Alessandro Chiacchetti as well behind, and I think Eric Lapp might be in there too.
Yeah, I think you're right. This is just a fun battle right here in the mid-pack. Nice mix of classes. It makes things complicated because, like, for the likes of Melito, right, he wants to find a way to make a pass and get then to the back of his class leader and be able to fight for the lead. But McInnes, by contrast, won't want to let that happen. In fact, he'll want to make a pass himself so he can get to the next car in his class, Frank Vitiello. It's an interesting balance to strike when the cars are, well, not entirely the same, but largely the same in this mix. But that said, you've got the different classes overlapping and affecting each other's battles within their classes.
Jody Miller ahead of Galante, fighting for 14th overall, but Miller's also in the Masters category. Galante's in the Pro-Am. He's splitting Miller from Kyle Washington, who's racing in the Masters, although usually he is in the USA West Series, which is also racing a little later today. But with them sharing the venue, as there was a lot of dirt kicked up at that second Apex, he's elected to get more track time and race out here in the Porsche Sprint Challenge North America race as well. Coming down into the hairpin, nobody able to get close enough there, but it is very nose to tail. And this is kind of what we're used to at this track, is, like we keep saying, passing can be quite difficult. And if a car gets that track position, it can make life a nightmare for those behind, as I think that was a big look from Galante.
Yeah, he's trying to find a way by. He knows this track so well. Came up through the Jim Russell School, which was based here at Sonoma Raceway, won a championship there, and that helped jumpstart his racing career. I saw a press release that said he estimated he had at least 4,000 laps around Sonoma Raceway over the course of his career. Really a remarkably experienced talent and a perfect option for MDK to plug into the race car this weekend when Mark Kwame was unavailable.
Sounds like the kind of driver that could do a lap in his sleep around this place. And he's showing it right now, putting a lot of pressure on Jody Miller in front of him. Has been poking his nose left and right, but can't seem to get the overlap down into the apex on some of these corners. We could see that change if there's a little mistake for Miller, or if we run into some traffic a little later on. We're still about 22 minutes plus a lap left to go on the clock right now, and this is down into one of the places where sometimes you can get passes, but Miller accelerating through the S's was much better through there to keep them at bay. On board with Checkered, watching them head into that chicane.
Yeah, this is a really difficult part of the track here. Everybody bottles up. It's so tempting to try and throw a pass up the inside. You can see I'm using all that curb as well. That's where the speed is found, but it's perilous too. Move not quite on, just through the windshield there. Taking a look in the inside through the hairpin.
Yeah, that looked like that may have been Washington trying to sneak through there. John Gilliland kind of stuck in the midst of that in the cow liveried car up in front. If you're ever looking for John Gilliland, just look for that machine with the spots on it. As we watch them go over the crest of turn 2, definitely shows you just how blind many of these corners are. 3A, another of those, and you just can't see anything but sky as you come over it.
160 feet of elevation change in a lap around Sonoma. That's in 2.5 miles. And you mentioned the blind nature of some of these corners. It's true. You kind of look like you're flying off into space, right, when you crest that hill. You just don't know what's sitting there on the other side. This corner here, the carousel, it's a downhill plunge, and it just goes on forever. You got to be so patient with the inputs, patient to put the throttle down, but you can't be late either because it leads to a literal drag strip. This is part of the NHRA drag strip that then leads to this hairpin section. Just a fascinating mix of corners, different types of curbing around the track as well. So much challenge to this place.
Checkered doing well with it, though. He's keeping within range of those in front of him in case there's some action happening. But that's Tony Melito directly in front of him, so that's one of the 991s that he isn't racing for position, but would certainly like to try and get by. Another big look from Kyle Washington there.
Should mention, Aaron Johnson's lead over Jared Thomas is 5.6 seconds at the front of the field. Paul Bocuse, after getting passed by Thomas, has been able to keep him honest. He's running within a half second of Thomas in the fight for second and third, and Ashley Freiberg's not too far behind that pairing. So really interesting stuff still at the front, but this has been awesome right here. Mid-pack, multiple classes all mixed in together. Feel for Niels Meissner here. He's been driving the 992 car a little bit this weekend because he's running in one of those in the Endurance Championship, and I bet he wishes he had that kind of horsepower available to him right here in his older generation cars. He's looking to make the pass on Frank Vitiello.
Yeah, just not much he can do. You need that extra oomph to try and get by on the straights because it's always so difficult to pass in the corners, and he just does not have the ability at this stage as they come back onto the drag strip once more. Cars keeping it thankfully within bounds, as we have had accidents coming off of that long left-hander out of the carousel where you can clip the dirt and it sends you straight into the wall on the other side of the track. As they run through the hairpin. Ooh, this is a bit of a good run there, but again, where does he go from here? Because Meissner through the S's has no place to try and sneak by.
No, and you really need that power to get you close enough to maybe make a lunge into the chicane, and Meissner's doing a good job to stay as close as he can, but you know he doesn't have the same acceleration and top-end speed as the car that he's chasing, and that makes it a real challenge. That S's section, though, that leads to the chicane, just great flow there, the way the corners lead into one another, and it makes you be so precise, inch perfect. A mistake early in that sequence will cost you the entire rest of that sequence, and I think that's one that the drivers find really satisfying when they're able to hit it right.
I've been keeping an eye on that tower on the left-hand side between Janson and Thomas, and Aaron is continuing to run away, so nothing really to report there. It just has it all his own way as we watch from on board, and a very clear track in front of that number 250 as he goes through the chicane himself, looking nice and smooth as he sets himself up to wrap up another one.
What a contrast from yesterday, right, where he was staring at the rear wing of Paul Bocuse nearly the entire race. I had a chat with Aaron about his approach to it off air, and he was telling me that to really push and try and make a pass, even on this new surface, which is not as abrasive as the old surface, it still takes a lot out of your tires. So what he was doing was sitting about a second back until he saw traffic up ahead. and then he would close in to be ready to pounce if the opportunity arose. And that's ultimately what happened. They caught the back end of the field. Oh, a couple cars around here.
Is that Melito?
I think you might be right.
Yeah, because that looks like Checkered. It is in the 249. So something happened between them down into the hairpin. And we have seen incidents in there as well. Drivers just getting tangled as it's a double apex hairpin and it's very wide between the two apexes. So opportunities to maybe stick your nose in. Looks like they carry on before our leader catches them, but that means now he might hit traffic that little bit earlier.
That will be a challenge, but again, he proved to be really good at navigating that traffic. Somebody is limping. That is a damaged car. It looked to me like it was crabbing.
Both of them are still there. I thought they took off, and yeah, Melito was parked, and now Checkered is taking off towards the barrier, and that's, I don't think, going to be considered a safe enough spot. He's trying to find somewhere where he can get out of harm's way.
That could change everything, and there we go, full course yellow. That wipes away a 6.5 second lead for Aaron Johnson, and I don't think this is going to be a super long cleanup either, so we should have a chance for a restart with Jared Thomas, the champion-elect, now suddenly finding himself right on the doorstep of the race lead. And I do wonder if maybe he was preserving his equipment for just such a situation.
That's a good point. If he held on to his tires thinking, I don't have the pace to run him down, might as well hedge my bets. And the gambling has paid off if that's the case. That is Checkered, who we see with the flashing lights here. This is on the exit of the hairpin of 7 into the S's, where he drove away, and then I guess maybe the team asked him to park it if they saw something on the data, chance that they didn't like, or he didn't feel something that felt right and didn't want to damage the car anymore from there. So we'll get them packed up. Pace car will get them in the line so that safety crews can go and attend to the 2 stricken cars. And like Ryan said, this should be, it looks like a quick cleanup as long as they can simply tow those cars into a position. And they've got a lot of space, as you can see from this above shot, kind of in between the walls there in the middle of the track.
Well, we mentioned this is the finale. 2 of the championships were wrapped up when the green flag came out. One was wrapped up yesterday with Jared Thomas clinching the Pro-Am championship, and then the 991 championship being won at the drop of the green by Niels Meissner. The one that was still up for grabs was in the 992 Masters, and the way that it runs right now, it would be Scott Blend set to hang on with a podium run here today, sitting in 3rd. If he finishes in that position, there's nothing Mark Bowden can do. Even a win would not be enough, and Mark really needs some misfortune for Scott here, and it doesn't look like that's the way it's going to go. It was so close between the 2 of them coming into the race yesterday, and then Mark had his setback early on, and that took a bit of the juice out of this championship battle we had been priming up for you folks over the course of the weekend. Nevertheless, credit to those 2. They've had a good fight all year long, and it does come down to this final 35 minutes of the season to ultimately decide who walks away with the crown and the big prize package that comes along with it.
Absolutely, and the pride of coming away with that, because this is a series that means a lot to these drivers, especially the Masters drivers who aren't necessarily looking to try and advance up like some of the younger ones are that are trying to start a career for, as you like to say, this is more the destination for the older drivers, often for them to get a chance to live out a dream in many cases and finally get to go racing. And to claim the championship would be a proud addition to the mantle as we see some of the safety cars at the bottom of our shot attend to Checkered.
And we'll need to get that attended to, but shouldn't be too long to get those cars to a safe place, and then we can get this race resumed. 12.5 minutes plus a lap in this race and in the season. It's amazing. Started back in March at Sebring, and all along the way we've had so many ups and downs, and here we find ourselves now in September, set to conclude another season of Porsche Sprint Challenge, another year under the USAC banner. And the growth that we've seen year to year in this series has been really cool to witness and to be a small part of.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, definitely on our end, getting to enjoy and follow along all season long. Like you said, we started at Sebring. We picked back up at Barber Motorsports Park a little bit later on in the spring, then headed off to Circuit of the Americas, where we had our first race for the Endurance Challenge, which is a brand new series, the first season ever of the North American version of that series over here. From there, we went off to VIR for the summer, had some celebrations at 4th of July at Watkins Glen, and then we went on over across the Midwest to Road America for the previous 2 events. And then we come out to the west to wrap it up here at Sonoma. Definitely taking a bit of time to get the car hooked up and pulled away. It does look like the drivers seem to be okay. So a bit of confirmation that the 2 cars were involved with one another to put them off track like that. I see Race Control says an incident between those 2 is being reviewed, but it is now being reviewed post-race. So they'll want to sit down and talk to both of the drivers to get a better, clearer picture of what caused it.
And there's no rush to get it done in race. Both of those cars will take no further part, so no reason to rush to any kind of judgment. Take the time to gather all the data, whether it's telemetry or onboard video or our drone shots, what have you. And Race Control will take a look at that, and they'll adjudicate accordingly. But like you said, the good news is everyone seems to be all right, and the cars should be moved into a safe place without too much delay at this stage. Still a lot of safety vehicles on the track, though, at the moment. So while this happens, the time is ticking away pretty quickly. The sand going through the proverbial hourglass, and we're now under 10 minutes to go, plus 1 lap, of course, in the season. I think everyone anxious to get this thing restarted if they can.
Yeah, the days of our lives are limited, unfortunately. This is it. Other than the Porsche Endurance Challenge later on this afternoon that we keep referring to for a lot of these drivers, that's it for the season. Last race, so they want to finish this on a high, finish this at speed as well. And less than 10 minutes plus a lap is going to be precious little time. Now, what I'm curious about is what's that start going to look like with Jared Thomas in P2? Because, like you said, we don't know for sure if he was strictly outpaced by Aaron. But if he does feel like he's outpaced, that restart is going to be crucial for him to try and sneak by.
Definitely, and we'll see if he could do it. Again, these are drivers that know each other well. They've raced with one another in different series, and they'll have seen each other's data and things like this, so they'll know their tendencies. But the gap, I will say, in terms of the best lap times between the 2, it is pretty big. John Sutton's best lap was a 37.9 compared to Thomas's 38.4. But when you look at their theoretical best time, which combines all 3 of the sectors, it actually shows only about a tenth or 2 between the 2. So Thomas just hasn't put that full lap together quite yet. But that does indicate to me that there's a pretty decent chance he can at least make a challenge when the race gets restarted again.
And I had a chance to talk to Jared before the racing on Friday. Or excuse me, no, actually, I guess it was yesterday. Boy, it seems like it's been a long weekend. It was after qualifying, because he didn't qualify as well, and we were very surprised at that with how many poles he's taken. And he said that the car was not doing well in the cold conditions. They didn't set it up for that. And I kind of wonder if maybe we're seeing a bit of that today as well, that with it being so foggy all morning, we're only finally getting the sun now start to pound down on the track to raise the temperatures of the track surface, which is really what counts more than the air temperature so much. And wonder if maybe the car, they just haven't been able to kind of get it honed in with a cooler track temperature to take the fight to the 250 team.
I think you might be onto something there. I talked to a couple of drivers this morning after the Endurance Challenge qualifying session, and a number of them said they just missed the setup on the car a little bit, and it's worth noting it was totally overcast at that time and much cooler than it had been previously in the weekend. And these little changes in ambient temperature, and as you pointed out, certainly the track temperature, can have a major impact on the way that these cars handle. So the fact that now we're seeing totally different conditions than we even saw this morning throws another loop into the equation for the teams as they try and set these cars up for the race. And I think you might be right that we're venturing into the unknown a little bit, and there's a chance that maybe the JTR team just didn't quite get the car set up for these conditions in the same way that the number 250 Charlie Hayes team did.
So our laps are showing at about 2 minutes and 45 seconds or thereabouts. So I'd hate to think that maybe we'd end under caution, but we still don't have those cars move. Both are still down at the end of the hairpin. It does look like, I think they just got Checkered up on the hauler, and I saw that car moving. Yeah, okay, so it's finally coming away, but we have a whole slew of vehicles still around Melito's machine. And it didn't seem like we didn't see debris, so I'm a bit confused as to what has stopped them. They can't load it up and pull it away quickly. It's something out of our context or knowledge is causing a bit of a delay.
Yeah, it is a strange one, because at first blush I too, and I think I even said it, I thought this would be a quick cleanup, but that's not the way that it is turned out at all, much to everyone's disappointment. And hopefully everything is all right there at the point of the cleanup. But for the moment, we continue behind the pace car. As it stands, if things were to finish this way, this would be quite a weekend for Aaron Johnson, just his second weekend ever in one of these 911 Cup cars. And the fact he could come away with a pair of wins would be remarkable. For Caden Kelly, too, in the Masters class, making this one-off appearance. That would be a wonderful result for him to get a couple of wins. Rob Walker in the second spot. I think Rob would be thrilled with that result, too. He's been hard at work getting to this point. This would actually be his third runner-up finish in the last, 5 or 6 races, as a matter of fact.
The good news is they've got Melito's car on the flatbed, and they're taking it away. So we should get restarted relatively shortly, but this might be a 2-lap shootout here.
Wow.
2 or 3 laps. It depends on if they ask the safety car to maybe pick it up a bit to give them some more racing time, because they should be able to remove those cars off to safety pretty easily here. And they're already at a little opening down there through the S's and good to go.
Well, that is good news. It does seem like the pace is picking up, and that's the reason for that is twofold. One, trying to preserve as much time as possible, but two, starting to build tire pressure, brake temperature, get the cars in their optimum operating window so that they're ready to go on these restarts. And I think there's going to be a lot of aggression here coming up, knowing this is the end of the season. One last chance to go grab one more spot or one more podium or perhaps one more win. It's all about to go green once again.
If we could jump back to Aaron just a little bit. You were talking to me yesterday about some of what he's gone through just to get here, and it's a really cool story. I felt like that he had to work extremely hard to get where he is in racing, and obviously all racers do have to put in the time and effort, but man, it sounds like he had a slog.
Yeah, he did. It doesn't come from a ton of wealth or really any wealth, but the family had worked and sacrificed a lot to help him pursue this dream. He told me when he went and did the Lucas Oil Formula Car School Series that it turned out to be a good investment because of the way it worked out. He had some success in it, but had it gone otherwise, it could have been really disastrous financially, but it worked out for the best. And along the way, he has won so many shootouts and scholarships and just things like that to try and keep his career progressing. Just a remarkable guy. We told the story yesterday, too, that he spent some time as a DoorDash delivery guy just to keep the lights on, basically, and keep the racing dream alive. And when given the opportunity, he has always excelled. And we're seeing that here in Porsche Sprint Challenge this year. And I know he's got his eyes on continuing up that Porsche pyramid in the years to come.
Well, I can relate because I actually drove Lyft and Uber for a period of my commentary career. Yep. So I understand you got to do what you got to do to keep moving and reach your goals. Let's see who's got the goal of winning in hand, because the pace car is in. And already it looks like Aaron is starting to pick up the pace as he comes around the hairpin. Green flag is out for the 250, and he is up to speed as we start with less than 2 minutes left to go, plus a lap here in the final race of the Porsche Sprint Challenge North America GT3 Cup. Up the hill and through turn 2. It is a good start, and he prevents Jared Thomas from having an opportunity to deny him.
Yeah, he was ready, wasn't he? He had those tires prepped, the brakes prepped. He was ready to attack. As soon as that green flag came out, it looked like Thomas was keeping pace with him pretty well initially. But in that initial climb up the hill, man, Jean-Son was able to build that gap once again, and really doesn't find himself under any pressure whatsoever. Jean-Son, Thomas, Bocuse, Freiberg, and Conrad Geis. That's the top 5 overall and in the Pro-Am class.
We will get the 2 to go signal most likely next time by. Should be enough lap time left to sneak through, but we'll watch and see whether or not that's the case.
I want to say, just saw Nick Galante is pulled into the pit lane.
Oh, you're right.
And I'm not sure what the cause of that would be. And again, that's a car they're hoping to run in the endurance race, so I hope it's nothing too significant. I don't see any damage, but the MDK crew is taking a close look at that race car.
They're not in a hurry, though, and they're not trying to at least repair anything from what we can tell right now, but they're definitely examining some things. Meanwhile, on screen, it looks like Aaron is going to bring it around down into the hairpin once again, but there should be just enough time, I think, for him to squeak by. And again, this is plus 1 lap to the allotted time, so they only get the white flag once it hits 0, and it will not hit 0 this time by. Just about 10 seconds remaining for the 250. Bringing them around for an extra lap now. Bocuse unable to try and get close enough to Thomas this lap. I'm sure he would at least like another second place instead of a third to wrap things up and beat Jared on track, since Aaron hasn't been his rival. It's been Jared that he's been facing off with all season. Having that, I guess, emotional victory would be important at the end.
It would. He's putting the pressure on as best as he can, but Aaron Jean-Son has this race under control. In the Masters class, Caden Kelly, Rob Walker, and Scott Blend, who, if they finish as they run, would be the champion in 2024. They run nose to tail. It's a really good battle there for the podium positions in the Masters class. That one's not going to end, I don't think, until the checkered flag comes out.
Yeah, I've been kind of keeping an eye over there to see whether or not Rob Walker could steal that away from Kelly. And here we go. Oh, I said that Bocuse wanted to try and get by. He's really getting onto the back of him now. As in the background, we can see there is almost nothing between the 271 and the 296.
Bocuse closing in into the chicane. Just 1 lap to go after this, so he's running out of time to try and make that move. Gets a pretty good run out of it, but to my eye at least, it looks like Thomas has enough of a gap where he shouldn't come under too much pressure in this braking zone for the hairpin turn number 11. Look at Bocuse close in. He's not close enough to try and pull a move off, but he's definitely there, filling up the mirrors as the white flag waves for the final time in 2024.
Jean-Son has 1 lap to go to make it back-to-back victories. Actually, a hat trick of victories since he won the second race last time out at Road America as well. But Paul Bocuse, hot on the heels of Jared Thomas, trying to see if he could take that second place away. He lost it through turns 3 and 3A. He's not going to get it back there with any sort of return move. Looks like as they come down through turn 4, wasn't close enough there as well, as we watch the bright orange car of Jean-Son come up over the crest and down, plunging through the carousel.
It's been a dominant drive from pole position for Aaron Jean-Son. Just missed out on pole position for race 1 yesterday, but was able to drive to the front, make that pass late in the going on Paul Bocuse to take the lead and ultimately the win. Today, no such dramas. He just had to negotiate that final restart, but that proved to be no trouble at all. And Aaron Jean-Son is set to sweep the weekend if he could just make it through a few more corners.
Just continuing to show the talent and the speed that he has. Surely someone has got to take notice soon of this driver through the chicane. It looks like, from what we could see on the pictures, that Jared Thomas did not lose out to Paul Bocuse through there. Last chance is going to be through the hairpin here at turn 11, and Paul is way too far back for that one. So I think we're going to see no change for the podium since the restart, and especially not for Aaron Janson, who will go back-to-back wins here at Sonoma. Great second place finish for Jared Thomas. Paul Bocuse goes for third and will wind up second in the championship. Freiberg just off the podium. And the battle between Conrad Geis and Therese Laloux. Conrad will come away with that fourth place in the championship, locking that in with his fifth place finish. Caden Kelly in the 288 is your winner in the Masters. Another back-to-back winner here today.
Great job by Caden this weekend. Rob Walker, a strong second place. Scott Blind, your champion in the Masters class in 2024. Well done to Scott. And across the line, winning in the 991 class en route to a championship. Niels Meissner gets it done with yet another race win, and he'll secure the class championship.
That wraps up the Porsche Sprint Challenge North America GT3 Cup season, but we've got more to come with the podium celebrations in just a little bit. And I'm sure the driver is going to be celebrating a lot tonight as trophies and awards will get handed out at the official banquet. But good to see that we at least got to finish it under green, Ryan.
I was happy to see that for sure. It was a thrilling season. Great way to cap it off here at Sonoma Raceway. Congratulations to all of the winners and all of the champions. It came down to the wire in a couple of the classes, but certainly very, very deserving champions across the board. We'll run through quickly unofficial results. Janson, Thomas, Bocuse, the top three. Freiberg comes home in fourth, ahead of Conrad Geis in fifth. And you get to the winner in the Masters class. Caden Kelly holds off a hard-charging Rob Walker. Scott Blind made a bid for that second spot on the final lap, but will have to settle for third. I think he'll do it because he wrapped up the title in so doing. Then Therese Laloux and Mark Bowden. What a valiant effort for Mark here this weekend trying to clinch a title, but came up a little bit short. Mike Mim, Joel Johnson, Kyle Washington, who's a busy guy this weekend, finishing 11th, 12th, and 13th overall. Then it's Vitiello. Meissner, 15th overall. He is your champion and your class winner in the 991 category. John McInnes, John Manship, Eric Lapp, Thomas Herb, and John Gilliland complete the top 20 overall. That's the way they finish, at least provisionally, pending any post-race inspection or sanction from the stewards. But it brings to a close a phenomenal 2024 season of Porsche Sprint Challenge North America, powered by Yokohama. So, for the final time this year, we'll say farewell. But before we do, we'll take a quick pause, and very soon Joe Peak will return with your podium celebration from Sonoma Raceway here in California.
Drivers, please head over to the podium ceremonies. If you finished on the podium, please head over for podium ceremonies. All right, it's time for our final podium ceremony for the Porsche Sprint Challenge North America GT3 Cup. We're going to start out with our 991 podium. And finishing in third today, driving the number 127, it's Tony Melito. Then finishing P2, driving the number 161, Thomas Herb.
Should I say that Meissner's unofficially the champion? Okay.
And finally, our winner and unofficially our champion, driving the number 152, Niels Meissner. Congratulations, Niels. We were trying to figure out before coverage started, okay, what needs to happen, and it simply came down to if you take the green flag, you win. If you don't take the green flag, you lose. So when the green flag waved, was that a relief?
It was a relief, but I'm still a competitor at heart, so when you put the helmet on, you get to the racetrack, you've still got to race. So I wanted to make sure that we had a good run with Tony and the rest of the 991 guys, but also challenge some of the 992s.
You had Tony about a car back. You had a buffer between you, but it looked like you were being held up a bit by those in front of her. You were trying to get by?
I was trying. It's quite difficult to get around a 992 here when you're in a 991, but I also saw Tony had some unfortunate luck and got taken out by another driver. So my condolences to him. I wish we were standing here together. So it seems like we each traded a day of bad luck. So yesterday was mine, today is his, but hopefully we can have a better luck next season.
Well, congratulations not only on the win, but a championship. Is there anybody you want to thank?
I'd like to have a big thanks to the entire Kelly Moss team. Being my first year in a cup car, there was a lot of learning. They had to really coach me through a lot of the process, help me with the setup. Also, big thanks to my family, my wife, my dad, and everybody that's been supporting me throughout the year. So it's a family and team sport. Thank you, everybody.
Congratulations. Again, that's our podium finishers here for the 991 class. Let's show off those trophies. And, of course, to celebrate the victory and a championship, let's spray some champagne. Let's hear it one more time for our winners in the 991 class here for the last race of the weekend in GT3 Cup. This takes us to the 992 Masters now. Finishing third, driving the number 245, unofficially our champion, Scott Blend. Then driving the number 253, coming home in second place, Rob Walker. And going back-to-back on victories here at Sonoma, in the number 288, Caden Kelly, your winner. Caden, excellent drive out there. Back-to-back wins. That's got to be a good feeling.
Sure is. And I just want to say, I'll just get all choked up here, but my throttle therapy team, my loving wife, my kids, my family, you guys are awesome. Thank you.
That's great stuff. So what happens from here? I mean, you come in, you make a splash like this. Are you going to return for more races in 2025?
Oh, hell yeah. No, I'm either Porsche Sprint Challenge North America or I'd love to do a Carrera Cup.
All right, we'll look out for you in both, and congratulations again. Back-to-back wins for Caden Kelly here at 992 Masters. And to celebrate, let's spray some champagne. Congratulations to the 992 Masters winner here in race number 2. This brings us to our Apexon Award. This is the Yokohama Hard Charger. And today, winning that is the number 234 of Kyle Washington. Congratulations to Kyle. And last but not least, it's time for the 992 Pro-Am. Finishing third in the 222, it's Ashley Freiberg. Then coming home second today, driving the number 271, Paul Bocuse. And our winner and unofficial champion for the 2024 season in the number 296, Jared Thomas. Jared, congratulations. The stats on the season are impressive. Essentially all but 3 races won by you. How does that feel?
It's pretty good. It just attested my team and a good car that they prepare week in and week out.
How did the car feel today? Because you and I spoke and you said the cooler weather didn't really suit your car, but it looked pretty strong today.
Yeah, we went back to the drawing board last night and made quite a few adjustments and got the car a lot better. I definitely didn't have anything for Aaron there at the end. He was definitely in the class of field, but a lot better than yesterday.
Well, still glad to see you up in the top step, and congratulations. Anybody you want to thank for the championship?
Just Porsche, Yokohama, my team, everybody involved in that. They put in a lot of long, hard hours, and it definitely doesn't go unnoticed.
I'm sure, and I'm sure you guys are going to be celebrating, as that is our winners in the 992 Pro-Am. And for the last time for the GT3 Cup drivers, let's spray some champagne! That brings us now to our coverage of the next race in a few moments. We've got more action coming with the Cayman Series. Until next time, though, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.
For the final time in 2024, it's time to go racing for the Porsche Sprint Challenge North America Cayman Championship. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sonoma Raceway. My name is Ryan Marine. Joe Peak will be along shortly as we get set to go for the final race of this 2024 campaign. And what a backdrop we have for this championship finale. Sonoma Raceway opened in 1968, 2.5 miles in length, 12 turns in this configuration in use here this weekend, with nearly 15 stories of elevation change over a single lap. This place is one of a kind. So much challenge of racing here at Sonoma with the elevation change, the tight, twisty sections as well. And it's a perfect place to showcase the wonderful handling capabilities of these Porsche 718 Cayman GT4 RS Club Sport machines. It's a good field ready to go, and we'll show you how they line up now. On the front row, Carolyn Conda will start on pole, just ahead of champion-elect Ian Porter, both of them in their first season racing in Porsche Sprint Challenge North America, and all JDX front row. Then we get to row 2, Tillman Schmid, who was on the podium yesterday. He'll start alongside Lonnie Unser for the Kelly Moss team. In the third row of the grid today, Alan Scalzo, he's on the pole in the Cayman Masters class, next to Patrick Dempsey from Wright Motorsports. Row number 4, we'll see Bill Pelichowski line up alongside Bill Fennick. Big day for Bill Fennick yesterday to get up on the podium, starting 8th overall today, but up there in the mix for another podium in class. Then in the 5th row, your champion-elect Michael Clark will start 9th, and Dan Ammon set to roll off from the 10th starting position here today. Row number 6, we'll see Dan Sibyl starting all alone, I believe, or maybe he'll have Rafa Martinez slotting up. Tom Kopczynski will not take part in the race here today, unfortunately, but there is Rafa Martinez, who should slot up into row number 6 alongside Dan Sibyl. Rafa doing double duty, really triple duty here today, running in USA West as well as the North American Cayman Championship, and we'll see him racing in the Porsche Endurance Challenge North America Series coming up this afternoon. With that, the field is ready to go, about to come into formation here at the end of this single formation lap. And we're going to turn them loose for the final time in 2024 in just a few moments. 2 drivers from the Rafa Racing Club by JDX team sharing the front row, but unlike yesterday, it is Carolyn Conda, the French woman, who will start from pole position, native of Le Mans, France. So she knows a little thing about racing and about speed, and she'll have her teammate who clinched the title yesterday, Ian Porter, starting alongside in the car with the white accent and orange hood. Then in row number 2, it's Tillman Schmid and Lonnie Unser. Row 3 is when we get back to the Masters field, and Alan Scalzo and Patrick Dempsey starting on the front row in that class as the green flag waves. Here comes the field roaring up the hill into turn number 2 for the first time, and from pole position, Carolyn Conda able to consolidate that advantage over Ian Porter. She takes the lead here at the front of the field. Lonnie Unser able to get by Tillman Schmid, and Lonnie's up into the 3rd spot after a really nice start here, Joe Peak. Great opening lap here so far, very clean as they now head down the hill for the first time.
As the drivers come around through turn 5 now up into turn 6. Remember, we've been talking this up a lot. Conda has been trying to beat Ian Porter, has only been able to do so once so far this season. And here she's got him on her rear bumper, but she has that track advantage to start the race.
Great job from pole position to consolidate that advantage. Now Carolyn Conda will have to fend off the driver that has dominated this championship from the first green flag at Sebring all the way back in March. That's her teammate Ian Porter. But I know you talked to Carolyn earlier in the weekend, Joe, about her prospects for getting a win here at Sonoma, and she was feeling very confident.
I loved it. I asked her, very simply, can you beat Ian? And she had a very simple answer back. Just, yep, no hesitation whatsoever. She felt confident. And it's certainly showing here today at the start of this race with her controlling the story, controlling the race from the front. But it's early as it's only the first lap of the race at this point. But look at that. She gaps him coming down to one of the critical parts here in the final hairpin.
Well, she was able to keep him honest for the bulk of the race yesterday and made sure it wasn't an easy victory by any stretch of the imagination for Ian Porter. And today, with clear track out in front, Carolyn Conda has set sail and has an advantage of 1 full second after the first lap over her teammate Ian Porter.
Behind them, you can see Alan Scalzo is leading in at the majors or the Masters category as Patrick Dempsey is chasing there. Scalzo is an interesting one because they just announced today that they are not going to be running that 26 car in the Endurance Challenge. So this frees them up to really take risks here in this race.
Well, Scalzo's been so good over the last handful of races. In fact, he'll close the season out with 6 consecutive poles. But the last couple of races, Joe, the pole has not transitioned into the kind of result he was looking for. Misfortune at Road America Race 2, a tough day yesterday as well. But a good start here from pole position. Scalzo in control of the Masters class.
Yeah, you can see Dempsey in behind him, and Patrick got into a little bit of trouble yesterday. Had a penalty after he made some contact with the car that's now behind him, Pelichewski. But with him being ahead, he can focus forward on trying to take a victory here in the Porsche Sprint Challenge, although he's got to make up some ground to catch up with that 26.
That was the battle for the lead yesterday, wasn't it, with Pelichewski and Patrick Dempsey, and unfortunately neither of them got the result they were looking for thanks to that contact at about the midway point in the race.
So down into the hairpin once again, first couple laps. And Condit still controlling this race. Scalzo controlling in the Masters. As behind them, Pelichewski wanting to try and get himself back onto the podium after missing out last time, getting spun around. So far, holding on to at least the third. Also, champion-elect Michael Clark back there in 4th place. He's also found himself with pressure off now that he is able to do whatever he wants because the points have already been decided. So he could try and go for this podium. Granted, he will need that car a little bit later on for the Endurance Challenge himself, so he doesn't want to do anything too crazy, but I'm sure he's out here to have fun for this one.
Yeah, and looking to add another podium result. He's really built up quite a resume here this season. He was 3rd in the championship a year ago, made the switch over to the Kelly Moss team this year, and the results have been coming really since the word go. Difficult first race of the season, but then went on a streak of just constant podiums, really with almost no exception there through the mid part of the season, including 4 straight wins at one point. Did have a bit of a swoon at the end of the year. Certainly race 2 at Elkhart Lake did not go according to plan, but he finds himself with his championship locked up. Had a nice drive from further back on the grid yesterday to get onto the podium and looking to repeat that here today. In fact, he finds himself up a position now and starting to reel in Pelichewski for the final podium spot.
This is a sight that Carolyn has been wanting to see more often. Open track in front of her, just nothing up in front with Porter behind in the mirrors. She swings it through the final hairpin. Last time it was 1.3 seconds. Has she extended that even more? Because it does look pretty large from what we can see visually. And if she's outpacing him, and she is by about another 1/10 of a second, this is looking like she might not just win this one. She has actually got the pace to outrun Ian.
Had a moment there at the top of the hill, though, missed the apex slightly, and it looked like that car was a bit twitchy underneath her. So it's not going to come easy, and you knew that coming in. This track is so challenging. It's so difficult to be perfect lap after lap, and that little miscue has just barely allowed Porter to close in. You could tell the gap has come down a little bit, but she's gathered it back up and now looks to be back in her rhythm again.
It definitely feels like they are not resting on their laurels. You look at the gap back to Lonnie Unser with another about 4 seconds between Lonnie and Ian. These two are running away, and we saw that yesterday as well. They absolutely obliterated 3rd place with these two reversed, and Carolyn just pushing Ian the entire way. Now she's going to have to step into his shoes and be able to soak up this pressure.
She's been awesome when given the opportunity at the front of the field this year. Got that wonderful win at Watkins Glen in race number 1. It was special because the family had come over from France and they were able to witness it in person. But you just look at the season she's put together with only 2 finishes off the podium all season long. The consistency has been remarkable, especially when you consider how many things have been new for her this year. The tracks are all new. The car is new to her. The tire is new to her. And even the language of communication is different based on the touring car racing she's done previously in Europe. She's been able to speak her native French. Here, everything is done in English, and that's led to some fun moments, I understand, within the team, trying to convey certain messages. And, they thought they had told her the information she needed to know, only to find out later she maybe didn't entirely understand what she was being told. But as the season has got along, those things have all come that much easier, and we've seen the pace relative to Ian start to equalize, and now she seems to have the pace advantage here this weekend.
I can only imagine how intimidating it must be to just uproot and move to an entirely different continent and try and apply your trade and compete this way. And I think she's done admirably from what we've witnessed so far. I've been kind of half watching Lonnie Unser and Tillman Schmid because it looks like they might have a bit of a battle brewing for that third position as well. The gap between them, you can see on the tower now, is about half a second apart. So Tillman's trying to deny her from another of her multiple podiums that she has racked up this season. But these top two are just jetting away from the rest of our Cayman field.
Yeah, they are. They've been the class of the field, not just this weekend, but really all season. These have been the two top drivers over the bulk of the year. We've had a couple interlopers pop in from time to time, but just in general, it's been the Conda and Porter show, and I'm really excited to see what the future holds for the pair of them as they continue to progress in their career using the Porsche Pyramid. But let's begin on this battle here for third and fourth overall. It's third and fourth in Pro-Am. Lonnie Unser has the purple-nosed Cayman and leading the way right now in this fight with Tillman Schmid. But under a lot of pressure, Tillman was able to get the job done yesterday and get up on the podium. I think a remarkable result when you consider he's not in for the full season. He's jumping in and out of this race car and doesn't have constant seat time like some of those he's up against.
Yeah, he's definitely impressed me pretty much from the get-go, the way that he's handled this opportunity and trying to see if he can finish it on a high, maybe to get more chances come next year in 2025 as well, I'm sure. Definitely putting quite a bit of pressure on Unser. And coming down into turn 4, we've seen this multiple times within the past lap or two. She's been going slightly defensive just to try and dissuade that 77 from trying to lunge.
Well, that's a cool statement when you get to say it, that you're putting some pressure on an Unser, right? Like, that's something to put on the resume. You know you're doing something right when you're up against really racing royalty in the Unser family. In fact, Lonnie's dad, five-time Indy 500 starter, Johnny, is here this weekend. That was cool to see. But, yeah, the racing runs in the Unser blood. There's no doubt about it. But Tillman Schmid, he's someone who grew up passionate about motorsports and got this opportunity through Monoflow, the company he works for, and you see the Monoflow sponsorship on that car as well. And he's just been loving every minute the chance to get on the racetrack and live out this fantasy.
Yeah, he is really keeping her honest. Not close enough this time down through the chicane, but I don't think he's been much farther away than that 0.5 of a second that I mentioned earlier. Each time they cross the line, they might be losing time to P1 and P2, but they're certainly fighting like this is for all the marbles. And the good news for Tillman is he doesn't have Scalzo close behind him. You could kind of see him in the background there going by. He's not offering any pressure because while he isn't in the same class, it's always so much harder to try and attack if you know that an ill-fated move could leave you vulnerable versus here where it's just mano-a-mano.
Sometimes you wonder if this squabble for position is costing lap time, but I find it interesting. Both of these cars had their fastest laps of the race each of the last 2 laps. So despite the fact they're pushing each other and challenging one another, they're actually still extracting more and more pace with each passing lap. So it goes to show just how good these two are in the heat of battle. They're not going to be distracted by this fight. They got their heads down and are still running the best laps they've run all race long.
Coming out of turn 6 onto the drag strip once again, both of them a lot more willing to use up the entire width of the track. It's been fun watching all weekend long who is able to take it all the way out to those curbs on the outside and who leaves a bit of a margin, because you are flying out of that downhill plunge through the carousel, and you need to get your foot on the throttle as early as you can to carry your speed. But these two are quite quick as they come through the S's, now out to the final chicane. And she's definitely clear this time. So once again, she's doing all the right things. This is actually an excellent run from Lonnie to kind of really deal with Tillman filling her mirrors.
Two different approaches to that chicane. She was much more circumspect on corner entry. Tillman just threw it in there, and it made it work for him. He was able to make up some ground at corner entry, but it did look like it cost him some momentum on the exit, and that's given Lonnie Unser some breathing room, which is not something we've said much over the course of this race. This is about the most of a gap that she's been able to build at this point. We got a glimpse of it a moment ago. Behind these two, that's when you get to the hornet's nest that is the front of the Masters class. Scalzo, Dempsey, Pelichowski, and Clark, first through fourth, all nose to tail, just about 2 seconds separating those four cars. Remarkable stuff, fighting for the podium and perhaps the last race win of the season in the Masters. Here we go. This is that battle. You ask and you shall receive. Great job by our staff to find this fight here. But Scalzo in the orange car, he's leading the way.
And Pelichowski, with him being behind Patrick Dempsey, I'm sure there's not too many big ill feelings between them, but I have no doubt he would want to try and put one over on him and get that position before this is over, considering it was Dempsey who spun him before. But he's going to have to get closer than this to try and make that happen. In the meantime, Patrick is trying to see if he can lay it on to Alan Scalzo and deny him another victory after he has had so many good results here through the latter half of the season, taking that 3 straight wins between Watkins Glen and Road America.
Exactly. And that's really where his season jump-started. All of a sudden, he found himself in the championship conversation after a slow start to the year, after that third of those wins at Road America race number 1. But unfortunately, despite starting on pole, he only finished 12th in race 2 there in Elkhart Lake, and that left him outside of the championship picture. Yesterday's misfortune certainly also hurt Alan's chances. So right now he's really locked into trying to hold on to second place in the points and secure that, and getting another race win would be very helpful for him in that pursuit.
Undoubtedly so. For now, he's holding on to that top spot here in the Masters class as they swing over the top of turn 2. Does look like Pelichowski's maybe a bit closer this time around, reeling in that white and purple number 98, trying to get himself into position to be ready should something happen between the top two to try and pick up the pieces.
It's interesting because Dempsey is marginally quicker than Scalzo, but Pelichowski is marginally quicker than Patrick Dempsey. So I think everybody's going to close in together here before too much longer, as we're starting to see at the front. Scalzo's a savvy veteran, though. He's not going to make this easy for Patrick, and Patrick will remember this is where it went wrong for him yesterday.
Yeah, doesn't want to make that same mistake twice. He's not close enough to try anything this time, although he's definitely closer to the last couple laps. That's where it happened right there, and he almost puts his nose underneath. I think that was more because of Scalzo going a bit wide at that second apex than anything. So he's getting a few tiny little mistakes out of this 26 car.
And that's probably what it's going to take. There's not a massive pace disparity between the two cars. We're talking a couple tenths of a second. And so it almost will take a miscue around a track like this in order to provide an opportunity to make a pass. That's what Patrick Dempsey's going to be looking for here. Pelichowski, it seems from time to time like he's closing in, and then he'll drop back off again. His fortunes waxing and waning as the race progresses. And now it's brought him back into the clutches of Michael Clark, the fourth car in this train. Michael, who clinched the title, he's got that all taken care of. So now he's just enjoying this elongated victory lap. That's effectively what this final race has turned into for him.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, he wants to at least hold on to the car so that he has something to fight for in the Porsche Endurance Challenge a little bit later on. But at the same time, he's got nothing to lose to try and fight with these drivers to go for position coming up into turn 4. Nobody close enough this time between them as this train cycles its way around the lap. This has all been taking place around 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th overall. But again, this is for the lead in Masters.
On board with Bill Pelichowski here, the leaders in his class, just out the windscreen. Love this corner. can see on the telemetry him easing into the throttle, going up through the gears now, down the back part of this drag strip, and into the first 2 hairpins around this Sonoma Raceway layout.
You can really see how wide they take it through there, using up all the sort of paved outside on that drag strip portion of the hairpin. Again, those apexes are very wide apart themselves, just because they've used 2 parts of the corner that are farthest apart. Not something you see as often here. This is something of a unique layout, as we've discovered. Many of the drivers complaining that they couldn't find a racing sim that they could go and practice on that had this specific layout, so probably had to adjust a few corners in small ways to kind of learn the best of those.
And the other challenge to that too is I don't think there are any sims that have scanned this track since the repave over the winter, and it's changed the way you approach the lap here, from talking to folks that have driven a lot before and then after the repave. The amount of speed you can carry through that section right there. Therese Laloux told me that it was reminiscent of driving Eau Rouge and Radion at Spa, the amount of commitment it takes and through that amount of elevation change, and that's really high praise for a corner when you're comparing it to one of the most legendary corners in all of road racing around the world. So all of this to say, the fact is that the track has changed tremendously since that repave, and for a lot of the drivers, even those that have had experience running here in the past, there are things you need to relearn to adapt to the new racing surface.
There was one sim that did have a scan, but that was literally right before the first weekend it was being used, and then they had problems with the surface. So that scan kind of got thrown in the bin, because now they're going to have to go back and scan it again. So there is sort of one scan out there floating, but it's not really useful now at this stage as we come back to our leaders. Between Conda and Ian Porter with 16 minutes plus a lap to go. This is kind of held station and now at about a second and a half. You were talking earlier, I think it was in the GT3 Cup race just about an hour ago, that some drivers mentioned backing off, almost kind of F1 style, and just letting themselves hang back until an opportunity arises. I wonder if that's what Ian's doing, or is this straight up pace that Conda is running away?
I'll tell you, I haven't seen Ian back off once
No.
this season. So I think in his case, he's given it all he's got. That even when he's been out in front of these races, some of the margins that he has won by, if you go back, especially in the early part of the year, as Carolyn in particular was coming to grips with the car and the American racetracks, but some of these margins of victory were just massive. And I get the sense that when he gets in his groove and he can focus, he can start to channel some of what made him so good as an esports star in Call of Duty competition, and just continue to hammer out those lap times. His consistency was so good. I don't think you'd really want to mess with what's been working with Ian all season long, and that's been push as hard as he possibly can.
Yeah, it's just amazing how quick he can go. For those not familiar with what we're talking about, he was known as Crim 6, well, still is known as Crim 6 in esports circles, and as a multiple-time Call of Duty champion. Made the switch over to sim racing and then now real racing, as he's had that passion in his background, just never really pursued it. And when the opportunity came, he's not just grabbed it with both hands, but man, he is just impressed all around in his first season ever in professional racing.
I think to me, more than his success on the track, more than how quickly he's adapted to this new passion, is just how dedicated to this he is. The amount of hours that he spends in preparation for these races, and the amount of work he did in the off-season to prepare. He had done some track days, so he knew he was going to have to change some things with his lifestyle in order to be ready for the season. He dropped 40 pounds over the winter, Joe. I mean, unbelievable level of commitment, working with some top-level physical trainers and things to get his body in shape to do these races, and he's only gotten more fit as the racing season has gone along.
I was just going to say, I was looking at some pictures he had posted to social media before this weekend, and even I could tell. I looked and I was like, wow, he is looking so much more fit than when we first saw him in the spring in March at Sebring.
Well, that's one thing he told you early in the year. Not only does he not really have a motorsports background, but he doesn't really have much of an athletics background.
Yeah.
And so this has been kind of a first for him to really be thinking about using his body as part of his occupation. I mean, to a degree that was true in esports, but the level of fitness required, of course, is a lot different when you go racing. And just, again, the way that he's totally embraced it and gone all in, feet first, it's been a fun story to watch. And I can't wait to see where it heads next. I think that's one of the great mysteries, is what's the next step for Ian Porter, because he's clearly shown he's ready to move on to whatever that next step is, whether it's staying in Caymans and moving up the Porsche pyramid and going into multi-manufacturer GT4 racing, or progressing into the GT3 Cup cars, whether that's here in Sprint Challenge or in Carrera Cup. I mean, that's what this series is here for, is to bring people like Ian into the sport, provide them a place to learn, and then from there, you've got all these different options staying within the Porsche family to continue and advance your career.
So we'll probably be watching with a keen eye after what we witnessed this season to see where he chooses to go, because it honestly is kind of a bit of a choice for him, I imagine, at this stage. He's get this much success. All he really needs is the funding to follow it up and be able to figure out where he wants to try and take this career, because it's looking like it will be a career for that number 86 driver. Coming down back onto the drag strip, though, he's being a bit vested today, and if we know Ian, he's going to be somewhat irritated and disappointed with himself if he can't beat Caroline for the final race of the season. But for Conda, this is going to mean everything. The last time she beat Ian, she had a little bit of damage on Ian's car because he got involved in some incidents at Watkins Glen. And he had said that kind of cost him a little bit of pace, and that's why he had trouble trying to repass her in that race. This time, this has been a straight fight. There's no little asterisk that she needs to put next to it. And she can say that she has outpaced him, at least in the first, 25 minutes of this race today.
Yeah, it's been an awesome performance from Carolyn. We go on board with her now. Just love watching her work. She's so focused. You can see it in her eyes in the top right, and you can tell anytime you talk to her as well, just the amount of commitment that she has to this. And love watching her. Very aggressive turn-ins oftentimes out of Carolyn, but super smooth, knows her business, and just has gotten better and better as the year has gone along.
We talked earlier about them pushing this pace. It's now up to 16 seconds over Lonnie Unser, just completely dropping the field with how fast they've been running here in the last race of the season. It's not over by any stretch of the imagination, but these two looking like it's going to be this two-horse race up at the front to try and decide the last Pro-Am win. We haven't checked in a while on the Masters, but that remains in the hands of Alan Scalzo over Patrick Dempsey, although that also is about as close as this has been, with about half a second separating P1 and P2 down there. Coming down through the S's and towards the chicane once more. The gap last time 1.2 seconds, and it's looking like that has not come down.
No, it's been solid here from Carolyn. Her consistency has been really good. That last lap, she was just a fraction quicker than Ian, and these two are just in their own zip code. They're running 142s, high 142s. The next pack of cars is in the low 44s, and then by the time you get back to the mid-pack, we're talking about 45. So these two are absolutely in a race of their own at this stage. And the thing that makes it so interesting is that they know each other well. They're teammates. They share the same data. You know, the cars are prepped similarly and at a very high level with that JDX team. So it's a real battle between drivers at this stage. They are on equal footing in every other sense. So fascinating to see how this is played out.
First goal in racing is always you got to beat your own teammate. Because, like you said, everything is pretty equal. We got a change for the lead here for the Masters. Slipping a little bit too wide. Scalzo hands it over to Patrick Dempsey, and he'll cross the line first in that Masters category with about 8 minutes and a lap to go.
Patrick Dempsey to the point late in the going. He'd been putting pressure on Alan Scalzo really the entire race up to this point, and finally saw his chance, and he took it with both hands. Great drive, and now look at him scamper off into the distance. Dempsey is in control.
Top of the podium, hasn't been able to do that yet this season coming in, and he's been coming in sporadically on the Sprint Challenge. He's mostly focused on the Endurance Challenge races, but these races beforehand on those weekends give him a chance to just kind of get up to speed once again. And look at, I mean, the speed is there. Holy cow, he's dropping him, and we're less than half a lap through this.
Well, we've seen this weekend, haven't we? The resulting qualifying wasn't there, and I'm not really sure why that was, but in testing, in practice, we have to be a little careful. Oh, as Pelichewski's through on Scalzo now, too.
Is something wrong with Scalzo?
Well, we saw that car have an issue, remember, in qualifying this morning, or qualifying practice as it's termed, for the Endurance Challenge. And I wonder if there could be some residual issue. He's definitely backing up, and now Michael Clark will be next to take a shot at him. But quickly back to the Patrick Dempsey story. We saw in practice and testing that he was capable of some really fast laps, and yesterday he was challenging for the win as well. So it's not a surprise to see him at the front, and now that he's in clear air, we're really seeing just how strong he is.
Yeah, we kind of knew that would be the case, and it looks like Clark hasn't been able to get by quite yet, but he's definitely eager to get by because they are dropping off the back of Pelichewski. So something about the pace just doesn't seem to be there. That, or maybe up to this point, Scalzo is doing a phenomenal job on defense because they were holding on to the back of him, and it was a train. So, I mean, hard to tell which is the scenario until we'll get to talk to him later.
From these overhead drone shots, it shows you just how dark this new pavement is, because Michael Clark's car is like basically carbon fiber black, and from high above, it's almost like a stealth car. It blends in to this very dark new pavement here around Sonoma Raceway. I wonder if that's any advantage to him. I mean, I suspect you'd probably want to be seen coming more often than not, but maybe not. I don't know. It's just funny to me to see how it kind of disappears into the pavement from high above.
Yeah, about all you get is the wing mirrors with the bright yellow kind of showing where exactly he is. Yeah, there you see that dark pavement. As we come back to Conda and Porter, now last lap by, it was 0.9 of a second between them. So let's see what it is here, because this definitely looks a little bit closer.
Well, it is, because she gave up half a second in the middle sector. Not exactly sure what happened on that lap, but bounced back nicely in the third sector to build the gap back out. It has come down, though. It's half a second. This is as close as it's been all race long, and Ian Porter is not going to go quietly into the night, is he? We forecasted that he knows only one approach to this, and that's to push with all he's got. And right now, he's throwing everything he has at his teammate, Carolyn Conda.
Yeah, he hates to do anything less than 100% in his racing, even when it comes down to finishing first, and yet he inherits the win, which has happened this season. He was unhappy with those results despite coming home with the victory. So he expects perfection out of himself, and I'm pretty sure he's pushing here at the end because he wants to come away with this win. He does not want to be bested.
Don't think we're going to have any traffic to contend with. It's been a nice, clean race, but it looks like the leaders aren't in any jeopardy of catching the back of this field. Conda and Porter matching one another. They were within 73 thousandths of each other in the first sector. How about sector 2? Porter marginally quicker. Oh, man.
He just outbraked himself. Not sure if he was trying to set up something and missed a mark or it was too ambitious, but he slid down into the chicane. Sorry, Ryan.
No, you're fine.
Thought maybe he was going for a ride through the dirt.
Well, it was close. He gave up some speed there, obviously lost some ground, and that gives Conda some breathing room. And with as evenly matched as they are, it's going to be tough for Ian to reel her back in. All of a sudden, the gap that was half a second is now nearly 2. That was a big break for Carolyn Conda, but it goes to show just how hard Ian Porter was pushing. Change of position here in Masters as Michael Clark is now up on the podium, having gotten around Alan Scalzo a few moments ago.
Down through the chicane. Pelichewski has unfinished business. He's back there by about 2 seconds last time by. Can he try and run him down to the last couple laps and take the win away from Patrick Dempsey and add to his tally of victories? There's the gap between P1 and P2 in the Pro-Am. So swings and roundabouts between our top two, as it was a mistake from Conda that closed it in, and it's a mistake from Porter that has brought it apart.
And Conda untroubled now. I think she could see it not too far away. She knows she's close. And I don't know that she necessarily views the win at Watkins Glen with any kind of asterisk or not, but there is no question this one is totally on merit. She has been comprehensively quicker in this race, starting from pole. Really not threatened hardly at all. Just that one brief moment there where Porter was looking a little bit threatening. But she's had all the answers, hasn't she?
She really has. We're going to get very close. I think 3 laps to go this time by as they come to the line. So still a little bit left. Makes you wonder, are there any butterflies starting to form inside that stomach? Is she getting any sort of nerves, or is she calm, cool, and collected inside the car? 1.5 seconds, comes down just a little bit. Ian trying to play catch up.
This lap and 2 more by my math. Running laps in the 140 range. There were over 2 minutes still on the clock when she came by, and it's going to be 1 lap to go when the clock hits 0, and then on the next time by. So again, it's the time plus a lap. You have to factor that in. So there is still some time here for Porter to close in, and he did. He was about 0.3 quicker on that previous lap, so he is closing back in on Carolyn, but he's got a long way to go to get there. And then once he's there, trying to make a pass, as we've talked about, that is no easy feat.
It's almost perfect timing for Carolyn to find herself up at the front here at a track like this, knowing that that track position is so key. And that came from her fastest lap during either qualifying or in the race. There is the second fastest lap, would set it for this one in qualifying. Whatever the case, it put her where she needed to be. And now that that chance was within her hands, she decided she's not going to let that one slip through the fingers. It has been executing extremely well up to this point. Let's see what the gap is once they get to the line this time. They'll get the 2 to go signed from here as they cross the line. Last time it was 1.5 seconds.
Does look like Porter has been a little bit quicker through the first few sectors of the lap. Certainly in Sector 1 he was. They were nearly even in Sector 2, but it's only marginal. It's not going to be enough with 2 laps to go. Across the line they come, and the lead is 1.5 seconds still between Conda and Porter. Conda was able to answer back and get those 0.3 back her way in the final sector, so it comes out a net even on that lap between the top 2.
Both seem to be hustling to get to the finish. Last race of the season. Last chance to prove yourself. They'll get to join each other on the track in the Porsche Endurance Challenge, but this is going to be more of a straight fight between the pair of them before they head off to the break over the winter. Down wide out of the carousel to try and cut back and launch onto the drag strip as they just clip the curb on the exit. She keeps Ian Porter at arm's length.
Well, Joe, if I could, I know it's for 11th and 12th overall. They're not in the same class, but I've been keeping an eye on it out the window. There has been a fantastic battle all race long. Rafa Martinez and Dan Seville, they have been linked together since the very beginning of this, and I suspect those two are having a ton of fun duking it out. Yeah, it's at the back of the pack, but if you've got somebody to race with, you can have a lot of fun in a race car, and that's what those two have been doing.
And yeah, I'm sure they're having fun, and it's almost kind of the reverse of what you've got here, where you want the win, and you're fighting hard for that. If you're the last car, you're fighting not to be last place.
Oh yeah.
So there's a little bit of ego involved in that one, as the white flag is held aloft at the flag stand. 1 to go for Carolyn Conda to get her second victory here on the Porsche Sprint Challenge.
The gap at the line, it's come down by another half a second. It's now just 1 second from first to second place. Ian Porter, he can sniff it, he can see it, he knows it's right there, but he's got to get past his teammate, who's already a race winner this year, Carolyn Conda.
There's going to be precious few opportunities. He's got to be much closer than this to try and make an attack and get there. And even then, if he does, all she has to do is play a solid defense to try and hold on to it. We've seen how tough it is to try and make those passes stick. How desperate is Ian Porter if he can get within striking range?
Two different approaches to the carousel. We've seen that all race long. She takes a wider approach. He carves that corner a little bit closer. It's allowed him to close in down the drag stretch now into this hairpin. Late on the brakes, he takes a lunge. Ian Porter gets to the back bumper of Carolyn Conda. That's going to have him in play. Can he make a pass into the chicane or maybe into the hairpin? Those will be his final two chances.
A warning shot has been fired, and that was close down at the apex. He's kind of lucky that he didn't wind up clattering into her. That's the last thing they want, is giving away this win on the very last lap of the last race of the season. He's not close enough down into the chicane. He goes for as good of a launch as he can coming out of there, because this is it. Down into the final hairpin at turn 11. Nothing beyond there will really give him a realistic shot to take the win away, and he is just not close enough. Ian Porter is not going to be able to make a slam dunk back-to-back win, because his teammate Carolyn Conda is going to win here at Sonoma. What a race from the 84, controlling that from start to finish. Behind them, Lonnie Unser, were waiting for a long time for them to finally come back around. She's looking at a podium as she's been holding back Tillman Schmid for some time. And celebrations down on pit lane for the Rafa team with that 1-2. There's our third place finisher, Lonnie, leading home Tillman Schmid. And I think Patrick Dempsey is looking very close to claiming his first Porsche Sprint Challenge win here.
It's shaping up that way. He had to put the move on Alan Scalzo, and he did so. And since then, he's been able to manage the gap to Bill Pelichewski. Just waiting on Patrick Dempsey to come around and take the checkered flag.
There it is right there, coming with celebrations as he holds close to the pit wall. Patrick Dempsey wins in Masters for his first victory in this series. Pelichewski will get a second place. And how about Michael Clark, going to wind up on the podium to celebrate his championship? That's a great way to wrap it up, Ryan.
And now we just wait for that final battle I've been talking about to cross the line. Here they come, Seville chasing Martinez, and Rafa does hang on to that 11th spot. Dan Seville in his first weekend of the season, his first weekend racing in the Cayman. But what a duel those two had. Again, sorry we didn't get to watch too much of it on the cameras, but out the window at least, it was fantastic stuff between those two, and I bet they'll have a lot of stories to swap at the end of this one. So that's the season done for Porsche Sprint Challenge North America, powered by Yokohama. The Cayman Championship is complete. We knew who were the championship winners coming into today's race, with Porter and Clark having clinched the thing coming into the finale, but some new faces at the front of the field in terms of the race win, with Carolyn Conda picking up her second win of the season, and the win in the Masters class to Patrick Dempsey in just his third race weekend in Porsche Sprint Challenge North America. We'll see him later on today as well in the Porsche Endurance Challenge North America race, where he's teamed up with longtime co-driver and mentor in motorsports, Patrick Long. So let's look and see how the race results look at the end of 35 minutes plus a lap. Carolyn Conda, your race winner by 0.8 of a second. Ian Porter did everything he could late in the going, but could not come up with an answer to her riddle. Lonnie Unser holds off Tillman Schmid to come home in the third spot. Schmid in fourth. Then fifth overall is where you find Patrick Dempsey, the winner in Masters, ahead of Pelichewski and Clark. Scalzo faded late and will have to settle for fourth despite a sixth consecutive pole position here today. Dan Ammon, Bill Finnick, Rafa Martinez, and Dan Seville. That's how they finished here in the final race of the 2024 season, which means we have one final podium still to celebrate for Porsche Sprint Challenge North America Cayman. That will be coming up in a few short minutes. The car's already arriving in Parc Fermé, and Joe Peak will be there shortly to bring you the podium festivities from Sonoma Raceway.
All right, it's time for our Porsche Sprint Challenge North America Cayman Podium ceremony. We're going to start off with the Cayman Masters, finishing third today. Our unofficial champion, driving the number 17, it's Michael Clark. Then coming home P2 in the number 62 machine, it's redemption for Bill Pelichewski. And scoring his first ever win in the Porsche Sprint Challenge North America Series, driving the number 98, Patrick Dempsey. Patrick, congratulations on the win. You took a little bit of a break from racing. You come back here for the Porsche Sprint Challenge. Does it feel like you had to shake the rust off a little bit?
Oh, yeah, every lap pretty much, yes. It's been great to get back and see so many familiar faces and have great support from Patrick Long and the team. John Wright to come back with them. I got to thank Mobile One and Porsche, of course, and all our sponsors. You know, it's just it's a pleasure and honor to be back here. I learned so much from yesterday's race, thought about it tonight, and then just stayed calm and was patient, and then the race came to me. So it was good. So great, very grateful.
Absolutely. And speaking of yesterday's race, you and Bill had a little bit of a coming together. Were you worried seeing him on your bumper there?
Yeah, I was watching him, but I was like, if I can just keep my head down, hit my marks, and stay calm. And then I was listening to Patrick on the radio. A couple moments there towards the end, I let my head get a little too far ahead, made a mistake, and I had to take a deep breath. But it's great. It's a great series to come back and be a part of, to learn. It's a great camaraderie, and everybody's doing a great job. And sorry about yesterday. We talked about it, but I think that lesson taught me a lot today.
Great stuff. And again, congratulations to our winner, Patrick Dempsey, in the Cayman Masters. And of course, to celebrate, why don't we spray some champagne? That was our Cayman Masters winners here for race number 2. And now time for the Cayman Pro-Am, with another podium added to her list, finishing third today in the number 4, Lonnie Unser. In second, unofficially our champion for this season, driving the number 86, Ian Porter. And achieving her second win of the season, driving the number 84, Carolyn Conda. Carolyn, a fantastic race. You started this one from the pole. Do you feel like that made a big difference, having the track advantage from the beginning?
Yeah, sure. It's better to be on pole. Yeah, it's better to be on pole.
You've been fighting all season with Ian Porter. With this being the last race of the season, is this something of a psychological victory as well?
Yeah, sure. It's the last race of the season. So, yeah, I wanted this win. So, yeah, I'm super happy about that, and I'm super happy for the team as well. Yeah, they did a super great job all the season. So, yeah, thanks to all the team.
Well, congratulations. That was an impressive drive for our winner, Carolyn Conda, in the Cayman Pro-Am. And for the last time for the Caymans, let's also spray some champagne. Congratulations. We have more racing yet to come, with the USA West Series now kicking off in just a few moments. Race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.
It's hard to contain your excitement when you get something you've really wanted. Like the gold standard in automotive protection, WeatherTech floor liners. With deep sculpted channels and laser measured for total protection in the front, back, and even up the sides.
Dad, you're going viral.
What? WeatherTech me.
So don't be shy, enjoy.
WeatherTech.
Order your premium American-made products at WeatherTech.com.
A shortened race meant shortened tempers for a few drivers yesterday. Surely many are itching to get out and get some more green flag running today for the season finale of the Porsche Sprint Challenge USA West Series. I'm Joe Peak, joined by Ryan Marine. And as we said, the big story last time was, of course, you didn't get much green flag racing, but this is a track that really definitely rewards green flag racing out here, Ryan, this fantastic venue here at Sonoma.
It's a great place, isn't it? Opened in 1968, 12 turns, 2.5 miles in the configuration we're using here this weekend. But it's the elevation change, it's the flow of the place that really gets your attention. Let's take a look at what makes Sonoma Raceway so special. Out here on the West Coast, Northern California, about an hour or so out of San Francisco. This place has been challenging North America's and really the world's best for a really long time, ever since it opened with that first race being held in December of '68. We talk about that elevation change. It's a huge part of what makes Sonoma so special, and it got even more mind-boggling, really, when you add in the repave that took place over the winter. Now, extra commitment required to get around this place. Couple of major passing opportunities, turn 2, turn 4, turn 7. I'd throw the chicane in there as well, plus turn 11, the big hairpin at the end of the lap. But all of those require a little bit of help from the car you're trying to pass, whether it's some cooperation and going side by side or a miscue to even open up an opportunity in the first place. All of it taken together, though, Joe, this is a place that will challenge the very best. And many of these drivers in USA West, they've got lots of laps here. They are among the best in the grid, in the paddock here this weekend in terms of lapping this place fast. Yeah, absolutely. And you can see them lined up here, and Blake McDonald is going to be starting this one on the pole once again, but Tony McIntosh bested him yesterday. Let's see whether or not that will remain the same. There's your front row for this one. Casey Dennis going to be starting from third, as Patrick Mulcahy will begin in P4 today. And you get down to row 3, where Sam Parnagian starts in fifth for the Masters, as James Lee starts in P6. From there, you've got Kevin Woods. Apologies, he's the Masters pole sitter in that BR Racing car. And then you've got Josh Conley starting in the 8th position on the outside of row 4. Row 5 has Luke French starting 9th, and then Jim Walsh, Ryan, will round out our top 10. To the 6th row of the grid now, where you find Joel Cortez from Monterrey, Mexico, next to the newcomer Brandon Hankins from Loftus Motorsports. That's row 6, positions 11th and 12th. Reinhold Kron will start 13th, next to Dmitry Novikov in row number 7. Row 8 of the starting grid belongs to Kyle Washington and Laura Eli from GMG and Black Sheep Racing, respectively. To the 9th row of the grid, and you find Jim Slavic next to Jay Barron. They'll start 17th and 18th today, and the 10th row belongs to Michael Zweiback.
Then we get down to the Caymans, where it is Anna Checkered, who I believe is supposed to be starting on the pole. Double check to see if she is actually able to start this race. Michael Gawke going to be starting P2. Eli Kogan is going to be the next car, which is a bit of out of place for him, typically starting P3. Richard Kinsey starting in 4th next to him. Then we've got the number 12 of Greg Checkered starting in the 5th position. 6 goes to Rafa Martinez. And then our last 2 are Paul Bonderson and Rod Wagner of our 27 cars. A nice big field for the USA West Series. Glad to see that healthily gets bumped up at the end of the season out in their home territory here on the West Coast. And pace car is heading down towards the entry to the pit lane, and Blake McDonald, interestingly, is kind of on his own. Not sure why McIntosh is holding back. There we go. Now he pulls up next to him. Thankfully, don't have any sort of shenanigans going on for that one. We'll come around the final hairpin, control being given to that number 208 machine as they get ready to start the last race of the season. Nice and packed up here at the front, ready to go as they wait for the call from the flag stand out of turn 12 where they can see clearly. And he's holding them a bit long. There it is. Green flag is out. Good jump off of Blake McDonald as they head towards the first turn. We watch from up above here, and McIntosh not going to be able to take that away. We got a battle for third, though, in behind them. Casey Dennis, the long way around, will defend.
In the meantime, the Cayman field, much diminished, unfortunately, after some chaos yesterday, just takes the green flag as well. They're off and running up the hill for the first time, but look at this field of Porsche 911s running not just nose to tail, but side by side. It is a frantic start to this race, but so far, Joe, a clean one.
Yeah, Casey managing to hold on to that third position. Mulcahy slotting back into 4th. James Lee in behind, still looking to try and give himself that next finish up in the Pro-Am standings and beat Luke French. In fact, Luke French a couple positions behind him already at the start of this race. Down to the braking of the hairpin. Look at Dennis almost getting right up to the bumper of Tony.
Oh, Casey looking really strong here in the early going. Last year's champion in USA West 991 competition. He started 12 races last year. He won all of them. He's found it a little more difficult in the jump up to the 992s here this year. In fact, hadn't won a race coming into this weekend. I'm sure that sticks in his craw a little bit, but he's got a good race car underneath him right now, and he's on the attack.
In fact, we got a little bit of a battle for 4th. I think that is Lee and Parnagian fighting for that position. No, excuse me, that's Parnagian and Mulcahy down to the inside. Parnagian managing to sneak through, or no, that might be slightly different. Excuse me, that's the 254 of Mulcahy with James Lee in there, and Parnagian falls down to 6th. Something must have really caught him out on that first lap.
Yeah, very surprising, but he did drop a number of positions there, and that has elevated the likes of Mulcahy and Lee now inside the top 5. We focus in on these battles. This is Mulcahy right there, the blue car, giving chase is James Lee, who's had a nice start to this race here and looking to put some pressure on in this early stage of this 35-minute plus 1 lap race.
Sure, Lee would like another podium for himself to help with that points battle. So as he tries to get by Mulcahy, whoa, and he has a big dip off into the dirt as there's a pass for seconds, and that would be Casey Dennis absolutely slicing through.
Man, that was something else. He started to the left and then came back to the right, kind of sold the dummy a little bit and was able to throw it up the inside of Tony McIntosh. And at that point, Tony didn't have much recourse, couldn't fight back. Whoa, Tony got a big heap of curb there, and that kicked him wide. That gives Casey Dennis some breathing room. And McIntosh is under pressure now. He got tagged just a little bit there by Mulcahy, and the two remain side by side. It was almost 3 wide for a moment there.
Look at Lee picking up the pieces. He's still got momentum. Can he make it 2 and 2 corners? Oh, he opens the door, but it is Tony who goes a little bit of deep. Gets into the back of Mulcahy. They're all going to make it out the other side. Look at the slide from Tony, though. Things are getting a little bit chaotic.
Well, Tony might have been sending a message there because there was some contact with Mulcahy in that chicane that opened the door for him to get by. We'll see what race control thinks of all of this. What it has done, though, is it means that the top 3 or really the top 2 are off on their own right now. McDonald and Dennis well out in front of this battle right here, with Mulcahy currently holding 3rd, but McIntosh trying to gather it back up after getting roughed up a couple of corners ago.
Caught a just short picture there of Dennis chasing McDonald, and that's how it was early in the season, as Dennis was the one that seemed to be able to try and hold him accountable and fight him for those wins, but McDonald has been pretty unstoppable for much of it until James Lee was the one, interestingly, that came along and just went on an absolute streak, but unfortunately his loss of the opportunity to race at both rounds at Road America cost him many, many points. So that's why we see him a little farther back and trying to fight back into 4th.
Yeah, that's right. We really would have had a tremendous battle on our hands had that gone differently at Road America, and he's not the only one that can say that. There was quite a bit of chaos there that weekend, but it nevertheless sets up for this battle here late in the going, with Casey Dennis starting to reel in the leader, McDonald.
Behind them, Tony once again getting into it down into the chicane, trying to figure out who he's battling with now. That might be Lee, actually. Yeah, that is indeed Lee once again. And it's going to be McIntosh who comes out ahead of the 2, holding on to that 4th place. These 2 have been getting very spicy out here at this stage. Parnagian watching from behind with a front row seat would probably like to pick up both spots if they go over the edge.
That would be the goal. Looking for an opportunity should it present itself. In the meantime, let's quickly give an update on where the Cayman classes stand. Eli Kogan is the best placed of the Caymans in the Pro-Am class. Then it's Richard Kinsey, the leader in the Masters. Paul Bonderson, Rod Wagner completing the running order in the Caymans here this afternoon.
Yeah, I think we have only Eli Kogan in the Pro-Am, since it looks like Martinez coming just off of the North America Cayman race, unable to get that turned around in time. Probably also wants to focus on getting it ready for this afternoon's Porsche Endurance Challenge. There is Kogan. I said a little bit earlier on this weekend that he's not had a whole lot of competition out there in a Pro-Am, but he's been dealing with it well because he's still racing for overall Cayman position with the Masters drivers that are out there. And boy, he's shown them the way in that number 50. After his very first race, didn't last very long and had a DNF, unfortunately. But since then, it's just been nothing but domination from him.
And that's been the season for Eli Kogan, the races that he's run in USA West until yesterday. He'd won all of them. He ran the North America races at Circuit of the Americas, finished 4th and 5th in those, and right now firmly in control of this. He runs this AutoWorks team, I've learned, based in Scottsdale, Arizona, and has a great collection of vintage cars. And loves his motorsports, loves his cars, especially the vintage variety, and has a chance here to scratch that competitive itch, and he's had a wonderful season racing in Porsche Sprint Challenge this year.
Yeah, and one of the things he loves me bringing up, because I have multiple times, is that car that he's driving is actually his mother's car.
Really?
Out on track right now, yes. And apparently his mom also likes it, so hello to Eli's mom out there, and glad that you're letting him race it all season long. We've been enjoying him getting to take those multiple wins as we turn our attention now back to our battle for the lead. Dennis is not letting go of McDonald.
No, and quite to the contrary. Dennis is actually closing in on McDonald here. He's been faster each of the last few laps, and it's down to 1.2 seconds now between the two of them. Just had a car pass through the pit lane, looking like maybe that was a penalty being served.
It did appear, but I don't see anything on my...
Josh Conley is the car.
Yeah.
A couple of laps ago, I saw him out the window slow down and let a whole bunch of cars go by. but I'm not entirely sure what led to that situation, and right there just made the pass through the pit lane.
We'll try and dig up some info on that a little later to see what we can figure out what's going on there. But this time by, let's see what the laps are going to look like. Fastest lap of the race for Blake McDonald with a 39 flat. And Casey Dennis follows that one up with a 39.1. So not quite as fast, but definitely trying to match him up there.
Both drivers turned in their best laps of the race, respectively, on that last one. I think McDonald might have been told that Dennis was making some headway, and McDonald then was able to put the pedal down a little bit and turn in that fast lap, and it stabilized the gap at 1.3 seconds. In fact, it went a little bit back Blake's direction on that lap, and that's a little demoralizing, I suspect, for Casey Dennis, who had seen this yellow and black car getting closer each of the past few laps, and all of a sudden that gap starts to open up again.
Yeah, Blake does not want to give anything up here. His worst finish of the season is a third place, and he's only done that once so far. And he's had many wins, many second places all throughout, and trying to wrap it up with a victory here at Sonoma Raceway, as Patrick Mulcahy behind them, unable to keep up with them. Of course, he got held up by the battle that he was having back there. You got to wonder what would have happened, though, because it's only about 3.7 seconds.
That's a good question, and you do have to wonder about that. As far as Blake McDonald goes, you mentioned the success he's had this season. He's going to have another chance at a win before the day is done, because he and Riley Dickinson will be racing in the Porsche Endurance Challenge race, and those two have been quick in the testing for that and in qualifying practice as well earlier today. But I mentioned it during that qualifying practice broadcast that Blake McDonald is going to be taking part in the Indianapolis 8-hour next weekend, part of the GT World Challenge America season, and also part of Intercontinental GT Challenge as well, the Globetrotting SRO Championship, slotting into a Corvette alongside Brian Sellers and Patrick Liddy for DXDT Racing. So a busy stretch here, racing on the West Coast and then heading off to the Midwest next weekend.
I mean, talk about biting off of more than you can chew. His endurance racing over here, 1 hour for these races, and then he's going to be jumping up to 8 hours for that one. So it's going to be quite a difference in what kind of duties he has in the car.
Busy guy, too. He did some racing in Asia over the winter, raced the final 3 races in the Asian Le Mans Series, actually in an LMP2 car. So he's been sampling all kinds of different machinery in the last year, whether it's prototypes or GTs, but a real talent, that's for sure. And excited to see him take that step into GT3 racing next weekend.
Patrick Mulcahy last time by was a 139.8, so a little bit off the pace, about 0.6 off or so from our 2 leaders, and that has extended the gap now up to about 5.8 seconds off the lead itself, it looks like. We'll see what it looks like to the car ahead once he crosses the line here. And he's bringing along Tony McIntosh, at least a little bit. He's not too far behind him. McIntosh yesterday maybe looked a little bit stronger than what we're seeing today. And I guess maybe the big difference is that it was kind of a one-on-one fight for Tony yesterday, and today he's been constantly surrounded by multiple cars.
And as we mentioned, that car did get roughed up a little bit. First it was Mulcahy getting into him, and then I think he might have got into the back of Mulcahy possibly as well, a couple of corners later into the hairpin. So I hope the car is still ship-shape, but there's no guarantee of that once you've been through the wars. And to your point right now, he's got to focus every which way, right? He's got his target out in front as we go full course yellow. That breaks off this battle. James Lee behind was putting the pressure on.
So I think we have a car stopped up in Sector 1. It looks like that is turn 2. So I'm trying to make out who that is exactly. And oh, it's a big wreck, and it is Jim Walsh. Oh, well, I know he said he was not going to take part in the Endurance Challenge a little bit later today, and that had been decided earlier on in the week, but this is not how he wanted to finish this season. The car in the barriers at the side of the track with some significant damage. It looks like the hood actually managed to come off.
And the tire wall also has been rearranged. Those tires do such a good job absorbing the energy of the impact. But yeah, that was a big one for Jim, who's had a good year. He's been on the podium a bunch. Came into the weekend third in points in 992 Masters. But this one will not end the way that he had hoped it would. Not sure what led to it, but the end result tells you what you really need to know.
He's been a bit unlucky this season. He kept looking for that first win in the Masters class, but Kevin Woods has been diabolically consistent and difficult to beat, and was actually trying to beat Laura Eli this weekend back into second in the points because he had lost that position after Road America. This is not going to get him that spot, unfortunately, as we wait to make sure that he's okay and see how quickly we can get this one cleaned up. At least we got more racing in before we had our first full course caution. Last time it was barely a lap that they completed before it had to come out, and then we didn't get started until about 8 minutes left to go.
Yeah, that's true. That was costly from a racing perspective. Didn't get a chance to see how the race would have played out, of course, over the scheduled distance and time, really scheduled time, not distance, but you see what I'm trying to say. Nevertheless, I wonder what this does for our battle for the lead. McDonald had started to pull back away from Casey Dennis and had extended that up to a couple of seconds prior to the yellow, but now, of course, that's all wiped away, and it brings Mulcahy and McIntosh and James Lee into the mix, too. Doesn't really affect too much in the Masters side of things. Kevin Woods has a nice buffer between himself and Reinhold Kron, who is second in the Masters class, but has two cars out of class in between. So not a whole lot changes there, but I think we could have a really fun battle for third in Masters before too much longer as well, with Dmitry Novikov and Laura Eli and Kyle Washington and Jim Slavic, for that matter, all running more or less nose to tail.
So there we get some other pictures here. They've got the door open. I didn't see if Jim has already gotten out. He's another driver that I've gotten to know well this season and actually had called races of on the sim racing side before for the Porsche Club of America in their virtual championships. But so apologies, I misreported there. Looks like the hood is still on. I guess it was just a darkly colored hood that they had to replace. I know that he had radiator damage yesterday from getting involved in the opening accidents that we had there, so I wonder if they also had to replace that hood and just didn't have the right color, and that's why it's sort of out of place with the rest of the car. But safety team is up there and didn't seem too much in a hurry, so I assume that he is at least relatively okay, if not maybe shaken up with what looks like a pretty good hit into the barrier.
Yeah, definitely, just based on the way that the tire wall looked in the shot we had a few moments ago. You could tell there was a sizable impact, and yeah, we send our best, our thoughts to Jib there. Never fun to end up hitting something, but if you're going to, and sadly I'm speaking from experience here, it's always better to hit the tire wall than something more substantial. I've managed to miss the tire wall more often than not, and I regret it very much.
I can only imagine. And it's something, you know, there's been a documentary crew that's been following around the Rafa team this entire season. Had a chance to do some interviews with them, and they asked me a lot about, you know, what it's like being inside a race car. And while I have been inside a couple race cars, I haven't driven them, but I can say I feel like the big thing that people don't realize is the violence of the ride inside a race car. It is like nothing you feel inside of a road car. Even the craziest ride that you've had inside a passenger car will not compare to the G-forces that you go through when you're at speed racing.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it sounds different. It feels different. You have all the creature comforts stripped away, of course, in the race car, and it makes for a totally different experience. And the thing that always surprised me, or that did surprise me the first time I was in a race and started mid-pack, was the smell. I never thought about the fumes and the various other smells that would be involved in being in the middle of a race, but that was something that struck me and that I was not at all anticipating. It's truly sensory overload, and definitely an experience unlike anything else.
I feel like there's some jokes to be made about fumes and race car drivers breathing in just a bit too many of them over the years, but we slow down, waiting to get this one cleaned up. Hopefully it should be able to restart, as while it was a big hit, it's a single car incident, so shouldn't be too difficult for them to extract and get us going. Once again here, they've already got it on the hook. They're ready to try and put it onto the flatbed maybe. Yeah, it looks like they're going to try and lower it onto there, and that should be an easy drive off, as there are a number of locations and holes in the barriers that they can escape to from here.
I haven't touched on the championship side of things in a while, but that was all basically wrapped up, right, coming into today, so that's why we've not dwelled on it at all. But that said, that was certainly something that a number of the drivers did have to think about a little bit coming into the weekend, and into yesterday in particular.
Yeah, there was a couple that were still open, but Blake McDonald versus Casey Dennis, it was pretty far apart. They were 106 points coming into it, so that one got wrapped up after last time. And then Kevin Woods also wrapped his up, beating both Laura Eli and Jim Walsh yesterday afternoon. So both the 992s are pretty much done, and it's been smaller fields in the Caymans all season. Like we said, it's been pretty much just Eli Kogan mostly racing up there in the Pro-Am, so he's kind of the de facto winner no matter what over there, with Michael Gawkey taking home the championship in the Masters for the Caymans with ease. In fact, he had wrapped it up before the first race started, with him being 124 points and 121 points available over the weekend at maximum, so nobody was able to catch him.
It's interesting that the way the points are structured in this championship, it keeps people in the mix quite a ways into the season, but it makes it very difficult to overcome a deficit unless your opposition fails to start. I mean, in some series you have to reach a certain threshold in the race to be eligible to score points. 50% is common, and so that adds an element of jeopardy to especially the first half of races, but that's not something that's in play here. The gaps in terms of the points paid out between the positions, it's not huge. And so, again, it makes it difficult to overcome a deficit. And what that does mean is you have to be really consistent over the course of a season. If you have, especially maybe a big incident in race one of the weekend, and it costs you a result there, but maybe also costs you the chance to start race two, that's when you can dig yourself a massive hole that's really challenging to get out of. It is a unique point structure in this series, and that's something I've noticed over the last couple of seasons.
And Lee is a perfect example of that. We were talking about, he had an accident in the practice for Road America, and that's why he couldn't race in either of those races. So he has 2 zeros there, and has been since trying to play catch up on Luke French. Coming into the weekend, it was about 17 points between them. So definitely not impossible, but he needed good results. He got a podium yesterday, and he's ahead of French, not by many positions, but I think I'll have to do the math and try and figure out if this will put him back into that 3rd spot in the championship by the end of today's race in about 12 minutes and 1 lap's time from here. Just trying to see, yeah, I think I see them moving Jim Walsh's car in our little marching ants map up in the corner. So I think, yep, there he is, starting to be towed off. And, well, I guess at least he does not have to worry about what he's going to do for that endurance race, since he hadn't planned on participating, but he's off to lick his wounds.
And disappointing way to end the year you hate to head into the off season with something like this because you've got all winter to dwell on it now. That's no fun at all. It's much better to end the year with some kind of positive momentum, wind in the sails, but not meant to be for Walsh here this weekend.
The one consolation that he does have is we have one more race to go after this, but that's in the Endurance Challenge, and that is at Circuit of the Americas.
That's true.
To wrap up the season in November, we're heading back where we started in Texas, and we will have a 6-hour race, so very much a true endurance. We've kind of been joking about these 60-minute races. Yes, they are longer than what we've got in the Sprint Challenge, but compared to most endurance races, 60 minutes is not terribly long. 6 hours will definitely test the teams. They have 3 driver teams for those. They're very excited about that coming up. And we'll see if he elects. I'll have to go chat with him, see if he has any plans, because like you said, ending it on a wreck, I feel like maybe if I didn't have plans, I would start changing them and see if there's a way that I can come back and at least end on a high.
I would think there would be motivation to do that, definitely. By the way, that is the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and 24th of November are the dates of that Porsche Endurance Challenge 6-hour race at Circuit of the Americas. We'll have coverage of that, of course, if you can't make it out to check it out in person. But really excited to get there and see what that looks like. From what I've heard, there is a lot of interest in running that race, not just involving teams and drivers inside of this paddock. I think you might see some Carrera Cup teams make appearances, some big-name drivers I've heard some rumors about that might be turning up for something to do in what would normally be their off-season. So a lot of reasons to be really optimistic about that. I think we'll have a bumper grid and some big-time stars taking part in it. So it should be a ton of fun in a couple months' time.
Yeah, that's a good point. I do love the timing they had chose for that. It's almost kind of the flip side of what we see with the Daytona 24, where it's that one is before the season starts for a lot of regular racing series. This one will be well after, especially on the road racing side in North America. Not many go down into November, so that frees up the opportunities for a lot of people to kind of dip their toes in and have some fun. And a low-stakes way for them, at least, because they're not in the championship, but it's going to be the finale for those who are fighting for the points in that one. So it's going to be an interesting mix to wrap it up there. And we saw the car out of our windows on the flatbed heading back into pit lane, so I imagine we should see those lights off, if not already.
I think they might be extinguished already on the pace car. That would be great news. A chance to restart this race. Indeed, the lights are out. Under 9 minutes to go now. I think we'll have somewhere between 7 and 8 on the clock when we get the restart, and then you throw in a lap on top of that. It should be a ton of fun. Who's been prepping the tires and the brakes? Who's got their car ready to go for the restart? That's going to be the question here. With so much still to play for in this final race of the season, no one needs to think about championships. That's all taken care of. So now it's about going out and getting one last race win or one last podium, one last top 5, whatever the case may be, to end the season on a high note.
Yesterday was almost a bit of a practice run for this, because we're going to have slightly less than 8 minutes left once we go back to green, very close to the time remaining last time around. A sprint, but with a bit more wear on the tires and everything on the car compared to yesterday, since we got at least close to half the race in on this one before we slowed up. Look at them all bunch up behind our leader, McDonald's, nose to tail there, not leaving anything to it as the pace car is in. Blake has control of the field. Where does he go from there? Race control probably watching to make sure he doesn't try and back them up too much, and indeed he is on the throttle and accelerating away. Behind him, Casey Dennis gives chase, trying not to let him go. It's a battle for third position as well as Mulcahy. Whoa, actually gets overtaken up through turn 1 by McIntosh.
That was a big move. I saw that shaping up out the window, and McIntosh saw just the slimmest of gaps, and he threw that car in there. That is for the final step of the podium. Those two have been slugging it out all race long. They've traded paint a couple of times, but it's McIntosh on the front foot at the moment.
Now remember, Tony was our winner last time, and granted it was helped a little bit as Blake was given a penalty and cost him the win. And that was for the restarts, I believe, or the initial start, one of the two. So that's why I was kind of bringing that up a little bit earlier, as they were probably watching race control very carefully to make sure that he played the right game this time. And now that McIntosh has been freed up, will he be able to try and catch up, not only past Dennis, but attack McDonald?
That's the question now. It looks like he might. He has set sail, hasn't he? Look at that teal car in the background of this trio. He has reeled in the top two, and it hasn't taken him very long. What a restart from Anthony McIntosh.
Man, and I'd say Dennis is also, wow, he is on the attack. Look at him, almost pushing him off the corner as they exit from the final chicane. Immediate defense from McDonald's. He does not want to leave that door open because he feels the threat of Casey Dennis.
He does. Dennis, though, desperate to get that win. He's been close. He's been nipping at the heels all season long, but maybe today is the day. With less than 6 minutes to go, it's still Blake McDonald by 0.3 of a second. Then McIntosh, Mulcahy, Lee, and Parnagi in the top six. Kevin Woods solidly in control of the Masters class.
Up and over turn two, still close to the back of Blake McDonald. Casey Dennis applies as much pressure as he can, and we've already seen it. Looks like he could have a go at things if he really wants to, into the braking zone somewhere, but behind him lurking, yesterday's winner, Tony McIntosh, is watching, waiting.
McIntosh looking awfully threatening, isn't he? Oh, that car looked a little bit twitchy there at turn in for the carousel. Now, to me, it appears that it's McIntosh looking the most threatening of this trio in the fight with Dennis. Dennis threw a haymaker at Blake McDonald on the restart, but Blake did not blink. He held on and now is starting to pull away a little bit in the black and yellow machine.
That could have been the plan for Casey Dennis there, thinking, I got to go now. I got to try and make this move as soon as I can, or else if Blake gets into a rhythm, this is going to be hard to catch him, and it's certainly looking like that might be as they come around back to the chicane once again. Tony also encroaching on the back of that 274.
Amazing to watch them just eat up the curbs through that chicane, but clearly that's where you can carry a lot of speed into and through that corner. McDonald with 4.5 minutes to go, solidly in control, and now Dennis does seem to have shaken McIntosh a little bit and looks to be mounting a challenge once more.
Interesting. A lot of ebb and flow up here at the top of the field. Behind them, it looks like Lee and Mulcahy are ready for round two out there as well, as they remain tight together. In fact, they're closing back in on McIntosh. It looked like they were being dropped a little bit earlier on, but each car finding strength and weakness at different times in this restart.
Hard to get a read on it. McDonald, by the way, turned in the race's fastest lap on the last time around. That's remarkable how well the Yokohamas have held on, especially after that heat cycle through the restart, but clearly they're up to the challenge, as is McDonald, whose lead is now closing in on 1 second once again over second place Casey Dennis.
Yeah, Yokohama having been the tire provider for the Porsche Sprint Challenge North America and USA West all season long, definitely has impressed with what we've seen, and that is a testament to the grip that they are able to give here late in this race, that he can do something like that, having cooled them down over the course of the full course caution on board with Mulcahy. And it seems as though McIntosh maybe gets himself a little bit of breathing room over him.
Looks that way. These two have been they've been the fun battle to watch all race long. They've swapped that position, that third spot, a couple of times, back and forth. Mulcahy driving for GMG, of course, James Safronis operation. Very busy, as ever, racing in multiple series around the country. And Mulcahy starting to close back in, trying to get back up on the podium. Had a breakthrough podium in race 2 at Elkhart Lake, you remember. Not running a full season this year, but as the year has gone along, showing some glimpses of promise, and really excited to see what the future holds for Patrick.
There is James Lee, who's still got a gap over Luke French, who's looking very close actually to some of those behind him. So it might have some problems there. Yeah, there you see Parnagian in the bright blue car and a little bit of a darker blue. That is Kevin Woods. Out of position, mind you, but Luke French is behind him. He wants to get by. He knows that if he wants to hold on to his third in the championship for Pro-Am, he's probably going to try and have to catch, maybe pass Parnagian, maybe even catch and pass Lee here.
Take a peek here at the leader in the Caymans. This is Eli Kogan from the Auto Works team, which he oversees. Nice, solid day once again for Eli. Smaller field today, unfortunately. We were so excited to see the growth in the Cayman class at USA West coming into the weekend, but there were a number of casualties as Kogan goes deep there.
Losing focus a little bit out on his own. Got to stick with it. You still got a minute and a lap left to go. And in fact, I think we might have the leaders coming by for the 2 to go. Yes, indeed, they just flashed past us now. So 2 more laps for everybody competing in this race. Down into the chicane for the number 50. Doesn't have anybody within his class to compete with, although the Caymans do give him a bit of a fight trying to keep Richard Kinsey from beating him for overall position. I'm curious to see how this podium will go, because I think, again, he was the only starter in Pro-Am, and at times they've had us do a podium ceremony for the lone Pro-Am car, and I always wonder how he feels about that, stepping up there. You won the one-car race.
Yeah, it is a strange dynamic, but you know, you do compare yourself to the other like machinery, at least, and he has had the measure of the other Caymans here today.
Indeed. Really has, and I think that's where he probably is more focused, knowing that yes, they're in the Masters class, but they're still, like you said, in that same machinery, so he wants to beat them, and he certainly has been doing that pretty much all season long, coming home the first of any of the Cayman cars. 0 on the clock now, so we'll get that white flag next time by from Blake McDonald, who is not out of the woods, I must say, because I can see out our window that he's only got a few car lengths over Casey Dennis.
Yeah, Dennis is doing his best, and he's been able to hover at about a 1-second deficit to McDonald over the last handful of laps, but has not been able to get close enough to make a true challenge. But that said, you're right, it has to be in the back of Blake's mind. He needs to stay perfect, can't make a mistake, because that lead can go away very quickly. 1 lap, 2.5 miles to go in the 2024 season.
Blake McDonald's got denied a win last time after a penalty scuppered him. So he wants to come back and win with the top spot, starting from the pole position, controlling this race. There were brief periods where it seemed like maybe he would have a challenge. Casey definitely being one of those, bringing it to him, but couldn't get by, couldn't get that track position. It stays stationary at about that 1.1 seconds between the two cars now as they head down into the carousel and have about half a lap to go.
Blake McDonald still at the early stages of his racing career, driving for BR Racing, owned of course by Robert Todd, who we've seen race in this series in years past. But what a talent he's got on his hands here in Blake McDonald, who appears set to take the next jump in his motorsports career, but right now focusing in on the task at hand. He's already got a championship in hand, looking to add a race win at Sonoma Raceway in the season finale, and he only has a couple of more corners to negotiate, separating him from that coveted race win.
Won the first race at Road America, but had to settle for second after that, and then of course, as we said, missed out on yesterday's, so he wants to get back to that top step where he has been familiar with it. And as the crew celebrates there at BR Racing, it is victory for Blake McDonald in the Pro-Ams for USA West here today at Sonoma. Behind him, Dennis is going to finish second. McIntosh gets himself a podium. And then how about Kevin Woods coming home now, trying to, I think, have a little bit of a fight there as, he got passed by Luke French. That is interesting. But Kevin Woods will be your winner in Masters as well as the champion.
Now we watch Eli Kogan coming around for the final time. What a season it's been for Eli, just loving this experience. And what a great place to get to lap in one of these Porsche Caymans nice and smooth, a little wide, but still very smooth through the hairpin for the final time.
His crew even also giving him the horns, it looks like, celebrating. They're happy with that one. Rock and roll win for our overall Cayman victor there in Eli Kogan, but behind him, it's a little ways to go before we get to Richard Kenzie, but he should be happy as he's taken back-to-back wins on this one in those Masters races as we wait for him to come around turn 12 on the Sonoma front stretch and give us his win here today. Class victory for Richard Kenzie here in the Masters for the final race of the season in Porsche Sprint Challenge USA West. All that's left here from now, Ryan, is our endurance race.
That's right. We're getting closer to that next step in that championship. For Richard Kenzie, by the way, that's effectively 4 wins in a row in races that he started. He didn't run at Road America, but he did win the 2 at Laguna Seca, and now a perfect weekend here at Sonoma as well. Great job by Richard. Would love to see him in a few more races looking to next year, maybe put a full campaign together and have a chance to go for the title. Also racing in that Auto Works stable, so a lot to celebrate for Eli Kogan and his crew at Auto Works with race wins in multiple classes. But nevertheless, that brings it into today's festivities for Porsche Sprint Challenge USA West, and indeed to the season for this championship. Blake McDonald takes the victory over Casey Dennis, Anthony McIntosh in third, then Mulcahy and Lee. Parnagian and French made that pass on the final lap for 7th overall, ahead of the Masters class winner Kevin Woods. Then Joel Cortez and Reinhold Kron in the 10th overall position. To the next page of the graphic, Brandon Hankins, a nice solid debut weekend. He's been loving this experience. He finishes 11th ahead of Dmitry Novikov and Laura Eli, who will be joining us, I do believe, on commentary for the endurance race later today. Kyle Washington and Jim Slavic in 14th and 15th. Finished the Cayman runners with Kogan leading home Kinsey, Bonderson, and Wagner. And Jim Walsh, unfortunately, did not finish today. Brought out the lone full course yellow of today's race. So for one last time, we've got a podium celebration coming your way to recognize the class winners and podium finishers in Porsche Sprint Challenge USA West. Stick with us. Joe Peak will be back with your podium festivities in just a few minutes.
Drivers, please head to podium ceremonies. Drivers, please head to podium ceremonies. All right, it's time for our podium ceremonies for the Porsche Sprint Challenge USA West Series. We're going to start off with our Cayman Masters. We'll begin with third place, driving the number 32. It's Rod Wagner. Then finishing P2 today in the number 43, Paul Bonderson. And taking victory today in the number 28, it's Richard Kinsey. Congratulations, Richard. Victory once again. It's been a long season, but looking back at it, how do you feel about your performance?
Oh, it's been a great season. I'm sorry Michael Galke wasn't out there with me. He taught me an awful lot, and unfortunately didn't get to make this last race.
Yeah, a bit of a shame to not see him get to battle with you. So I guess we look forward from here. Are you coming back for another season?
I'm not sure what my plans are, but I'll be somewhere.
That's a good answer. You're always somewhere, I suppose. Congratulations on the win. That's Richard Kinsey, our victor today in the Cayman Masters. And of course, we'd love to see you celebrate with some champagne. Congratulations to our winners in the Cayman Masters here in race number 2. That now takes us to our Cayman Pro-Am. Had a lone entry in this one, driving the number 50. Our winner is Eli Kogan. Eli, congratulations. I know we jest about you being the only car in Pro-Am sometimes, but you still beat all the Masters drivers, so I have to imagine that's probably a pretty good feather in your cap.
Yeah, it was a fun race. I'm sorry to see what happened to the Chechis yesterday. That was a big bummer. Lonely in the field today, but season's over. I can give the car back to Mom now.
Yeah, we had given her one more mention on the air. Is she still excited about every time we bring that up?
Yeah, they love it at home, so appreciate it.
Not a problem at all. Well, enjoy the victory. That's Eli Kogan. Before he spray the champagne, let's hold up the trophy. And now Eli can spray the champagne. Gets to hang on to a lot more of that to drink for himself, I'm sure. Now we head to the 992 Masters. Starting off in third place in the number 229 machine, it's Dmitry Novikov. Finishing P2 today in the number 233, Reinhold Kron. And our unofficial champion in the Masters and winner today, it's Kevin Woods. Kevin getting some ribbing from his fellow competitors. So Masters champion, I mean, how does that feel?
Oh, it feels amazing. I can't thank the team enough. BR Racing did amazing work this year, and I was just a passenger. They did all the work.
I think you give yourself a little bit credit for wheeling the car out there. I mean, you've looked pretty darn fast. Do you ever think about asking for a dispensation to try and go up against the younger folks and go for Pro-Am?
Sure. I mean, I've done it in karting. I raced pro shifter kart for a long time against the kids. This is my first year in the Porsche 992, so it's been a difficult year, but I think I've made a lot of improvement, so we'll see what happens next year.
All right, we'll watch out for you. Congratulations to our winner, Kevin Woods, in the 992 Masters. And why don't we also spray some champagne? Let's give it up one more time for the 992 Masters winner here in race number 2, which now takes us to the Apexon Award. Today's Yokohama Apexon Award for the hardest charger goes to the number 209 of Laura Eli. Big congratulations to Laura. Passing the most cars this race. And finally, let's go to the 992 Pro-Ams. Finishing third today in the number 224, Anthony McIntosh. Then in P2, driving the number 274 machine, Casey Dennis. Finding redemption from yesterday, our winner, Driving the number 208, it's Blake McDonald. Great race out there, Blake. Coming home with the win. It looked like Casey was trying to make you work for it a little bit.
Casey always makes me work for it, but I welcome it. I've loved racing against him all year long.
Well, I think the other thing you're probably glad about is we didn't get a whole lot of green flag racing in the first race. Was it much better to really get to go toe-to-toe under green conditions today?
Yeah, I mean, that's why we race. We don't want to race behind a safety car, so today's race felt a lot better.
Well, glad to see you guys get to tussle out there. Congratulations. Not only our winner, but unofficial champion, Blake McDonald in the 992 Pro-Am. And for the last time for our sprint races, let's spray some champagne! Congratulations to our 992 Pro-Am winners. We'll be back with more coverage later today, as up next in the afternoon, it is the Porsche Endurance Challenge race number 3 from Sonoma.